Oh, never mind, found it.
The regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, April 20th, 2020. The time is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Here.
Commissioner Wright?
Here.
Thank you. At this time, District Council will read into the record the adoption of the new meeting procedures in virtual form.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, good afternoon. Welcome to Monday afternoon. In the backup and having previously published this proposed board meeting procedures, allow me just a few minutes of your time to go over the conditions that are set forth, which are consistent with Governor DeSantis's order dated March the 9th in Executive Order number 20-52. Essentially, for the record, what the governor did was he waived the physical quorum requirements for public meetings, but did not waive the Sunshine Law, Chapter 286, as it applies to public meetings. Just a couple of ground rules, if you will. I'm going to read basically the items. There are 6 of them into the record, and I'll do them word for word so that when you consider the order and adopt it by motion, it will become part of the rules of the road for the organization going forward, given this unique pandemic crisis that we have in the world, and as we practice ourselves in public life here in South Florida. Essentially, consistent with the order of the governor, 20-69, there are 6 conditions that we're going to seek to impose and to employ in the context of public meetings. Number 1 is that notice of all virtual meetings of the board shall be prepared and posted in accordance with section 120.54, subsection 5B2 of the Florida statutes and chapter 28-109 of the Florida Administrative Code, along with the district charter and other applicable local and state law. Chapter 120 is what's called the Administrative Procedures Act. It governs certain types of state and local organizational meetings, much like this one specifically. Chapter 28 in the Florida Administrative Code is the code interpretation of the statute. Number 2, members of the board and district staff may attend meetings remotely utilizing CMT. And CMT is defined by the order as being communications, media, technology, which is a method by which we're currently conducting this meeting. It is virtual because not any one of us, including board members, are physically on the dais this afternoon. But the meeting is no less public and no less accessible by the public than as if you were actually physically at the meeting. The district shall assist to ensure that all members of the board and necessary district staff have access to the board meeting. Pursuant to the order, which is this order, a physical quorum of the board is not legally required to hold a meeting and to conduct official business. In the event that a physical quorum is not present, a virtual quorum shall be required in order to hold a meeting and to conduct official business. Moments ago, Joanne took the roll. Each of you were present for the purposes of the virtual meeting, and as a matter of law, you may conduct public business as a virtual quorum. Number 3, the district office, including the board meeting room, at the discretion of the district's executive director, may be closed to the public. In the event that the district office is closed to the public shall not be permitted to physically attend the meeting of the board. This restriction is intended to ensure compliance with the CDC recommendation to avoid gatherings of more than 10 people. Also consistent with and compatible with the governor's numerous orders. This governor has issued a dozen plus orders since April the 1st, beginning with 20-51, 52, etc., all of which declares the emergency and the conditions under which the state is currently operating. Key to this discussion is item number 4. Any member of the public wishing to comment publicly on any matter, including on items on the agenda, may submit their comments by email to Brianne Harms at the appropriate email address. All comments submitted by email that, if read orally, are 5 minutes or less, shall be read into the record. All comments submitted by email shall be made a part of the public record. Public comments may also be submitted during the meeting through the district's dial-in platform, included on the meeting notice, which you've seen a copy of and which has been posted appropriately under the Florida statutes. If any member of the public requires additional information about this board meeting or has any questions about how to submit a public comment at the meeting, earlier reference was made to Brianne Harms, our executive director, and The methodology by which we're operating this evening is functional because we do have some public comments by email, which the clerk will read to the record appropriately through the chair when appropriate. Key factors for our conversation today under number 5, all action, not some, but all action of the board shall be taken by a roll call vote. Why, you ask? Because the record needs to reflect who you are and that you're taking a vote. Voice votes are not legally sufficient under the rules, under the virtual meeting technology, under CMT. Having your name read to the record and having your vote count will allow for the public recording. And by the way, all of what is occurring right now on Zoom is being recorded. So there's nothing off the record. Everything is on the record. This is not a closed door session to talk about litigation. It is a complete and an open public session. And number 6, if at any point during the board meeting, the technology fails, or if the technology is insufficient to permit all interested members of the public to attend, the board meeting shall cease immediately until such problems have been resolved. As I've explained to all of you during our pre-test session last week, this is not a perfect science. However, it is a platform and an appropriate use which has been used by the state of Florida for many years under their statute, Chapter 120. CMT is not new to the program, but it is new to local government, it is new to district government, and it's new to all of you. As your general counsel, along with my law partner, Jacob Horowitz, we encourage you to be patient. We ask that you be understanding of the fact that there may be some technical issues that need to be adjusted as we proceed. The chair does have control of the meeting as the chair. She will still have the ability legally to deal with the issue of having people heard. There's a mechanism which she'll describe, which will be utilized here today. Try not to talk over each other in the context of like a deposition where a lawyer asks a question, the witness answers, and they go back and forth, and the court reporter can't judge what's being said because he or she can't hear. So be mindful that your colleagues may need to speak, and if they do, just give them deference as best you possibly can. We also know that members of the public have logged in, and they're being controlled by I suspect by the chair, by Brienne, to make sure that they're somewhere in the queue or they're thereby available. You have a full agenda. You have items that are of great concern to the public. As you know, the governor's order that permitted virtual quorums at public meetings expires on May the 9th. It reverts back to an order that was dated on March the 9th, and it's been implemented for a 60-day period, which could be extended by the governor. But under the current circumstances, that is the proposal from your general counsel. And I would ask, along with my law partner, Mr. Horowitz, that you accept the Park District board meeting procedures by appropriate motion and by a roll call vote. And that when that is done, it can then be signed by the chair and also by our office to confirm these are the procedures. One more thing, Madam Chair, if I can, in the backup, you'll find also a sheet which is on Park District letterhead, which kind of walks through the technology information that I cited to earlier, and which gives very, very specific detailed information, all of which, by the way, has been posted, published, as well as has been on the internet now for a number of days to give the public sufficient access points to get into the meeting. I appreciate your listening. Thank you for the patience with which I've offered myself and yours. And if I can answer any questions, I'm happy to try, Madam Chair, but thank you all very much. Thank you.
Mr. Gorin, do I hear a motion to adopt this policy?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mr. Rollins made the motion, Mr. Engel seconded. Do we have some discussion or any questions? Hearing none. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes,
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair. You have your procedures in line, and they'll be followed by each of you in the context of the approach this evening. And thank you for listening and for embracing the appropriateness of the rules. Thank you.
We appreciate your time, Mr. Gorin and Mr. Horowitz. Commissioners, if you will just, a couple of things before we get into the agenda. If you'll silence your phones, I almost forgot to do mine. And Brienne, so that we can keep everything in order, Brienne will mute us and unmute us as I call on you so that we won't have anybody talking over anybody else. And I'm just glad to see all of you here safe and sound. We do have a change to the agenda that I've been made aware of. The number 1, the FAU MOU. will be deferred, as well as the number 4, the Sugar Stand Park easement will be deferred. Brianne, do you want to explain that to everybody?
On both items, we just need to get some more information before we discuss them.
Commissioners, are there any other changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to add one item to the agenda, specifically a resolution urging Palm Beach County to reopen beaches, passive public and private parks.
Mr. Gorin, Mr. Horowitz, is that, since it wasn't advertised, should that be part of the reports and discussions, or can we add it to the agenda with a
Jake,
motion?
I'll defer to you on this one. Jake? Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
So it sounds like the commissioner has an item he'd like to add to the agenda. You have two options. It can either be added by a motion, the majority of the board at this point, or we also have later on the agenda the commissioner comments. If the commissioner wanted to raise it as part of his comments and present his item at that time, either option will be legally acceptable.
Do I hear a motion?
I made the motion. I guess I need a second. Right.
Okay, do we have a second? Hearing none. Now, can Mr. Ernst bring that up, still bring that up in commissioner comments?
He could, if there's a particular item he would like the board to consider and he'd like to raise it substantively, he does have an opportunity later on the agenda as part of his commissioner presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Horowitz.
Okay, I will do so.
Okay. Okay, now we do have a number of public requests that Brianne is going to read into the record. And everybody, please be, I'm asking the public to please be very patient because there are over 100 of them. I want to thank the public for all of their responses and for tuning in today and for your support during this very difficult time. And I hope everybody is all right. Brianne, I'm going to turn it over to you, please.
Okay. I'm going to start with a report from Michael Calvert, the Recreation Services Department. He's the head of the Recreation Services Department of the City of Boca, and they've all been working really hard throughout this time. So he sent this update tonight. Good evening, commissioners, Ms. Harms, Ms. Dawson, and Ms. Miller. I hope this meeting finds your family, your friends, and yourself safe and well. I wanted to send a quick note to thank you for your support and update you on some of the many tasks we as an agency have been accomplishing the past few weeks. Even though our parks and programs are technically closed, our department and the city teams have been extremely busy. Maintaining our facilities and grounds, such as the swim and racket club's pool and tennis courts, have been dramatically reduced, but we are regularly maintaining them in order to reopen quickly when the time comes and to ensure that there are no mechanical issues during the downtime. We go into facilities twice a week for visual inspections. Some other maintenance has included running the carousel 3 times a week for an hour per the manufacturer's instructions and checking on pool chemicals each day at our aquatic facilities. At Gumbo Limbo, we inspect all 3 beaches for turtle nests and feed 10 turtles and over 1,000 fish daily. We also continue to nominally maintain our grounds, athletic fields, and golf courses. We are also participating on a national stage and are engaged in conversations with NRPA and other agencies, including those in Florida and in Palm Beach County about the COVID-19. Team members have participated in learning webinars, roundtables, and I was one of 2 speakers on a national NRPA virtual roundtable and spoke about how Boca has dealt and is dealing with this pandemic. The safety of our teammates is our top priority, and we have altered operations to protect our coworkers and their families. For example, many of our work groups now have an A team and B team. They do not overlap. This is to ensure that if one person potentially interacts with a positive COVID individual, the whole team could self-quarantine and the other team could come in and carry on their duties. Additionally, we have distributed buffs, which are face coverings, to all working team members, and our emergency management division in the city has been working hard to procure more cleaning and sterilizing supplies. In order to save budgeted monies, we've scaled back tremendously on part-time and non-exempt team members. Our public servants have been taking on new responsibilities and are assisting wherever possible to help our community and agency. I'm so thankful that we have so many passionate exempt team members who've been doing so many varied and challenging tasks and responsibilities in these uncharted times. They deserve a lot of credit, and I'm so proud of their efforts. Municipal services, finance, police, fire, human resources, and many other departments have been working on important projects, and we are talking with city manager and city leadership constantly. Finally, City Council has restarted their public meetings, including public workshops. While I would like to state that all our citizens, athletes, visitors, and users are abiding the orders to stay out of parks, unfortunately, every day we still have to ask a select group of them to leave. Even at some parks, the same patrons return day after day. I do realize that this is a small group of individuals, but it's sending the wrong message to our community. We have had to chain basketball hoops closed, rope off fitness stations, and block off the parking lot at Spanish River Library as athletes have been going there to Dehormey Park to play football, soccer, and other sports. In addition to plenty of signage, numerous communication releases, and ongoing updates to www.myboca.us, we still see patrons in our communities not social distancing. Moving forward, the city is planning to work with the state, Palm Beach County, Broward County, and Miami-Dade, along with the district, for a unified and coordinated opening of parks, beaches, and facilities. By opening together, one city, agency, or even county will not be flooded if they are the first to open while neighboring communities remain closed. I'm looking forward to the day when all of us can reconvene in our beautiful parks and facilities. For someone who has spent nearly 30 years working in parks and recreation, doing everything I can to get more people in parks and programs, you can imagine how tough the past month has been. I've heard similar thoughts from my fellow colleagues. Things might be different when we open in a potentially phased approach, but we have a caring community, resilient citizens and residents, dedicated team members, and understanding elected officials. I know our park users will assist us in returning to a sense of normalcy when the decision is made. Be safe and well. We are indeed better together. Michael. From Dave Petrozelli at 920 Lago Mar Lane in Boca Raton. Wishing everyone the best in these uncertain times, I ask that before opening Ocean Strand to the public that the district follow past practices in working with area neighbors who would be impacted by a park's opening. And while I understand the board's reasons for going online with its meetings, to open Ocean Strand under such circumstances after all these years would restrict many of those who will be affected from being heard. As you know, this property was originally purchased to prevent development, protect the environment, and for passive use. We both know this unique area has a one-of-a-kind habitat. I concur with the adoption of the Citizens Petition Initiative and the subsequent Ordinance 28-1307, the downzoning of the property. Commission Chair Susan Vogelsang's proclamation that the district plans to keep the property for recreational space and specifically not commercial uses. And finally, with the district's proposed declaration of restrictive covenants to be recorded in the official records of Palm Beach County. At the March 2nd, 2020 meeting, when Ocean Strand was discussed, Board Member Robert Rollins made several valid points as to what should be considered and properly vetted in the planning process and before opening the property. Commissioner Rollins said feedback from those who live near Ocean Strand was critical, and his questions in regards to safety, hours, types of activities allowed, and who oversees the property should be given careful consideration. I've always appreciated the district's willingness to work with its neighbors, and I believe taking methodical, measured steps will help prevent any negative unintended consequences in the opening of Ocean Strand. I look forward to being a part of the Ocean Strand conversation and thank all of you for your dedication to park development and stewardship. Since I will not be able to attend and many others may not have the ability to access the meeting via computer, I would greatly appreciate you read this letter on the record during public comments. Respectfully submitted, David Petrozelli. From Mr. Harold Chaffee. Glad to see some normalcy coming back slowly to our world. As always, everything will come to pass as long as we are safe and healthy. Also, my condolences to all the people who have lost loved ones because of this terrible virus. It's hard to get the wheels of progress started again, but life goes on and we must. I would like to know where we stand with the golf course in regards to the BPD progress on the construction end and the communications with the city since the deadline has passed for their approval. What progress has been made and what is the BPD doing to move forward? I do not want this to drag on too long and create a situation where the city, just like before, did not like decisions or comments made by some of the prior members of the BPD and remove them through the election process, which is coming up next year, and shuffle the deck again, causing more delays and utter destruction of the unity and camaraderie we have now. I would also like to know where we stand in regards to the state's comments, if any, on the definition of convey and lease. Additionally, I would like to thank Brianne, Melissa, and Joanne for all the hard work they have done during these difficult times. I didn't add that part. This is from Jim Miller, who is the president of the Friends of Gumbo Limbo at 480 East Boca Raton Road. Madam Chair and Commissioners, on behalf of the Friends of Gumbo Limbo, I first want to say we appreciate and thank you for the district staff for the prompt and appropriate response with the city to the COVID-19 crisis. Friends, with the leadership of John Holloway, our executive director, has adapted as well, working directly with the Nature Center. The center is closed to the public and only necessary actions are underway for the maintenance of the center and taking care for the animals. Friends continues to provide food and supplies needed as well as veterinary support. We have worked with the center to expand internet and web-based presence to provide engaging experiences and information to support the mission of conservation and education of our coastal environment. Some of the most engaging aspects of our energized social media efforts are around the opportunity to follow progress in the sea turtle patients we are treating. Several sea turtles have recovered to the point that they could be released and the team has successfully returned the patients home. Looking to the future, Friends is pleased that with Brianne and Melissa and the city leadership, several meetings have taken place on building a new tower with ADA compliance. We are actively supporting a new approach to the tower that will utilize an inclined ramp rather than a funicular. We are very encouraged that this will work. This is an amendment. There's an amendment to the MOU between the district and Friends concerning the tower, allowing for an extension of the time for the MOU to April 18th. Friends proposes that we extend the timing an additional 6 months. We look forward to coming up with a revised MOU in that timeframe for a project that will see the tower built. Thank you again for all the support of Gumbo Limbo. We look forward to seeing the center opening when and how it is appropriate and safe to do so. Our shared commitment is helping us make Gumbo Limbo even better for the future. This is from Leanne Welch at 1011 Southwest 11 Terrace. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Leanne Welch. I live at 1011 Southwest 11th Terrace. I'm submitting these comments on behalf of myself as a Boca Raton resident and environmental advocate. These opinions are mine and not necessarily those of the city's Recreation Services Department. I would like to thank you for your dedication towards maintaining the Ocean Strand parcel as public land and protecting it from development. The city of Boca Raton and the greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District have always been leaders in environmental protection. Our beautiful coastline, nearly half of which is beachfront parks, is testament to that. Our city's sea turtle protection program was one of the first in the state beginning in 1977, and one of the very first coastal lighting ordinances was passed right here in Boca in 1986. Tonight, I'd like to urge you all to consider the value of the Ocean Strand property, not for development or recreation, but as a habitat. This precious 15-acre parcel represents the last undeveloped real estate of its kind in the city, stretching from the ocean to the intercoastal waterway. Before being purchased by the Beach and Park District in 1994, it was slated for development, and much of the native vegetation and critical habitat was removed. Restoring this parcel to native habitat would include coastal dunes, maritime coastal hammock, and mangrove wetlands. I've spent my entire professional career as an advocate for coastal and marine ecosystems, and I recognize the rarity of this opportunity to make our voices heard and to speak for the trees. Who better than the greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District to speak up for the restoration of this rapidly disappearing coastal habitat? The boardwalk at Gumbo Limbo winds through one of only 3 remaining examples of tropical maritime hammock in Palm Beach County. The others are in Ocean Ridge and MacArthur State Park. My written comments include more information on the value of this nearly extinct environment. Raising our collective voices to speak for restoration and protection of this parcel would be a lasting tribute to those who had the vision and foresight to protect the coastal land of Boca Raton and Gumbo Limbo sits today. Tropical hammocks provide crucial resting and foraging areas for migrating songbirds, in addition to providing habitat for the native foxes, skunks, owls, turtles, and other animals that make their homes here. I know that 15 acres may seem too small to make a difference, but Gumbo Limbo's hammock is approximately the same size, only about 500 yards away, and supports an amazing variety of wildlife. Many studies have shown that these small pockets of protected habitat surrounded by a sea of developed land are of critical importance to native wildlife. One of the many proposals presented over the years for Ocean Strand mentions restoration of the hammock and maintaining a passive park here. I'm confident that we could find many community advocates in addition to outside funding sources for this type of endeavor. Native vegetation requires less maintenance and virtually no fertilizer and watering once established, resulting in a significant cost savings over the long term. Restoring this habitat could still include limited parking, an educational pavilion, and water access similar to the many natural areas in Palm Beach County. Access for all could be accomplished in a combination of paved and natural trails and accessible kayak launch. Recent studies done in relative wild parks and urban areas revealed that the residents seek out these natural and ungroomed areas for relaxation, wildlife observation, and simply enjoying nature. Keeping Ocean Strand as wild as possible, removing the exotic vegetation, restoring the native hammock forest will ensure that we have one more beautiful gem in our already spectacular city. This is from Greg Galanis at Southwest 22nd Avenue, 1780 Southwest 22nd Avenue. To open or not to open? Too many are promoting the extremes on either side. The extremes on either side are not good options, but there's a lot of middle ground that will allow us to proceed with caution and a minimal amount of risk. It appears that several elected officials support opening slowly and thoughtfully while others remain silent and have yet to weigh in. Hopefully today we begin a respectful dialogue that will allow for a balanced solution to this difficult challenge. A thoughtful and balanced approach opening in less affected areas and low-risk recreational venues and following CDC social distancing guidelines and disinfecting procedures could be a good first step. Execution and oversight could be critical to this approach succeeding. In terms of opening the golf courses, there are sound and proven safe practices published by the National Golf Foundation, the USGA, and many current golf publications that should be considered and incorporated into all the plans on the horizon. We urge you to plan now and be ready when Palm Beach County and the state of Florida deem it safe to proceed with this much needed form of recreation. Many of our members are in high-risk category and will likely choose to stay home. We respect their decision and encourage them to exercise that right. For the majority of our group, this is only a form of recreation they get, and they are anxious to proceed in a safe and well-thought manner. Stay safe. Respectfully, Greg Galanis. There's more. This is from Heidi Ruttman, a Boca Raton resident. There is no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public places in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. We need to continue to stay home to save lives. Gail Weisberg, please do not reopen Boca Raton at this time. I'm 75 years old and fear this virus could kill me. Boca is a substantial elderly population. We need our officials to protect us. Please wait until we see what happens when other states reopen. Ray Jacobs, Boca Raton. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow this to happen here. Those who want to reopen are ignoring advice of virologists, health professionals, and experts. Instead of citing proper hand washing and social distancing should continue while city is reopened. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing in such public places and beaches, parks, and small stores, restaurants. Beaches and parks were closed because people weren't using safe practices. What is more, people traveling to and from Boca beaches and parks to other communities will spread the virus. We've already seen what has happened when countries relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. Short-term economic pain is a lot easier than the loss of human lives. Don't undo the good we have been doing to help our community. This is Liz Sterling, Boca Raton resident. Remember when you were young, you felt invincible? I did too. I wouldn't have let this pandemic affect me, and the minute I could resume living, I would. But the problem is younger people do not know how to change their ways until they get hit over the head by the proverbial 2x4. We need to protect our citizens, our elderly. I'm 62 and I'm scared to re-enter this world. To help me feel safe, 1, opening must be timely. 2, I need to know if I get sick, I can get help. And 3, I need to trust that you think about me. Please choose life. Wait, please. Randy Paul Heskins, Boca Raton, Florida. It has come to my attention that the city of Boca Raton will be considering whether or not to reopen the city. This is not only foolish, but dangerous. Below are just a few of the reasons. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We have already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There is no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. There's not enough testing to be done to determine who is carrying the virus and asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that the virus will be spread. I am as tired and depressed as anyone with a stay-at-home order, but it is necessary for the greater good. Please act wisely. Judy K, Boca Raton. I have been living in Boca Raton for 24 years as a full-time resident. Every year I have purchased a beach permit. No one loves the beach more than I do, but I know during this time of COVID-19, going to a beach or park is a terrible risk. Opening public spaces and allowing crowds of any sort that will help spread the disease. Social distancing and careful hygiene is our only help to combat the coronavirus. Don't allow political pressure to endanger our lives. You will be held responsible for any illness and deaths that occur. Consult Dr. Anthony Fauci or Johns Hopkins University Medical School before you make any life-threatening decisions. Sincerely, Judy K. Dear Sir, Madams, we are residents of Boca Raton and Highland Beach, Florida. We have learned and are greatly concerned that Governor DeSantis and some members of the City Council are more than considering and pushing hard, not only for our beaches, but the entire city of Boca Raton to reopen. These politicians and council members are pushing erroneously that we all need to protections, proper hand washing, and social distancing, and that this should protect us in a reopened city in a worldwide pandemic. Please do not be bulldozed. If you do so, you will be ignoring the advice of health professionals, virologists, and some of the best scientists in the world. We are smarter than that. Please do not let this happen in our towns and cities. We know, as you do, that if we do not continue to stay at home for now while the virus is first spreading in Florida, more people, including our families, will sicken and die. We will endanger our healthcare professionals and our vulnerable population as well. I don't know where I was. Please do not let this happen to our towns and cities. We know, as you do, that if we do not continue to stay at home for now while the virus is first spreading in Florida, more people, including our families, will sicken and die. We will endanger our healthcare professionals and our vulnerable population as well. The governor has just started the stay in place and social distancing edicts that we haven't even started with much progress this past week, and it all takes is a push from DC, and he wants to set adrift. If the above plea only reaches your ears and not your thought process, please take into consideration the following. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public places such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have at the present time to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. Think of all those spring breakers who were brought the virus to us back to other states. We ask that you please consider all the above and think of your family and friends and community. Do not pass any orders to open the beaches or city. Let the science play out a bit longer. Consider the facts and data and the countries that have opened too soon and are regressing with the disease. Thank you for your consideration, Ms. Perry Barron. I want to open too, but it's too soon to open Boca. We have already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. There is no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca and other communities will spread the virus. There's not enough testing being done to determine who is carrying the virus and asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that this virus will spread. Ann Crane, Boca Raton resident. As a Boca Raton resident, I'm writing to ask that you not allow the parks and beaches to open yet in Boca, and here's why. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. We have already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing and testing. Testing is not readily available yet. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces will spread the virus or vice versa. Thanks, Joelle Ivers. Hi. Social distancing can't be enforced by the police. Beaches were closed, albeit way too late for that reason. Other countries have relaxed restrictions and the number of cases went back up. Even China is admitting numbers. Sweden did nothing and 10% of their population is infected. We all want our economy to take hold, but the expense of human life, only people without brains are going to run to a restaurant. The check is in the mail has had so many problems. I don't know anyone who has gotten one yet. No money, that they certainly aren't going to go out shopping. First things first. Our governor is thinking about sending kids back to school. Amazing. People are asymptomatic. Kids are going to bring it into their home to their grandparents. DeSantis doesn't think children are affected, but we hear of children dying from the virus, not like elderly people, but they will be spreading. Scientists and medical personnel are against opening up too early. They're the ones we should be listening to, not the governor or Newton. Mitigation is most important. Governor of South Dakota didn't restrict much, and now their numbers are going up. Governor DeWine of Ohio is a strong leader who's doing it the correct way. Same with governors of New York, California, and Massachusetts. Testing, 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 that is the key. We haven't done enough. The governor is working on it and getting checks out too, but we aren't there yet. Please think carefully, listen to the doctors and the scientists. The president is thinking about re-election, which is fine, but at the expense of human life, not acceptable. He called it a hoax by the Democrats, then the media, it will be gone right away, and on and on. He knew at the end of January and did nothing until March. Cheryl Le Pen, Boca Raton. I just heard that you will be meeting on Monday and Tuesday to discuss reopening the beaches, parks, and the whole city of Boca. I think this is a terrible mistake. Just yesterday in the news, it said the states without stay-at-home orders are seeing a rise in coronavirus cases. We're not over the worst, and our medical community will implode if we're not careful. We live in an area with a lot of elderly that are at increased risk if they are exposed. Who is going to enforce social distancing in the public spaces? The police don't have the bandwidth. Plus, we need them to be doing other things that are vital to our safety. It's been shown that upwards to 50% of people who have the virus are asymptomatic, but are contagious in spreading this virus. The only way to mitigate this is to continue to be vigilant and social distancing, which means we all need to stay home longer. Thank you for listening. I'm sure you're hearing from a lot of people, but I implore you to please take advice from the medical experts and don't reopen too soon. Susan Marcus, Boca Raton, Florida. My husband and I live in Boca Raton, Florida. My husband is an ICU physician working on the front lines. Please protect our healthcare workers and first responders. We all want to get back to normal, but let's do it the right way. With that being said, social distancing is proving to have saved lives. PVC has done a great job, and if we continue this path, we will be able to open soon. If you open early, this could worsen the situation. Please listen to the experts, medical professionals, and scientists, not politicians. Thank you, Diana Friedlander, clinical social worker. Dear Brianne Harms, Boca Raton Parks executive staff and council. It came to my attention that you will be discussing reopening beaches, parks, and in the entire city on Monday and Tuesday. I urge you not to ignore the advice of health professionals, virologists, and the experts. If we do not continue to stay at home, the virus will spread, people will get sick and die. We will endanger our healthcare professionals and our vulnerable population. Police do not have the resource to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. Just yesterday, April 17th, the number of reported coronavirus cases in Palm Beach County jumped up by 221 in one day, with beaches and parks closed. The number of new cases is still growing exponentially every day. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. I urge you not to open beaches and parks in the city. Boca Raton resident Tatiana Chiminova, 5951 Wellesley Park Drive, Boca Raton. Dear Boca Raton city officials, when do the health professionals say it is safe to open Boca Raton? I know the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District will be discussing this issue on April 20th. I live in Boca Raton. As much as I would like to get back to some form of normalcy, I feel if the city is open too soon, we will have a spike in the coronavirus and more deaths. We've seen that in other countries. It is difficult for the police to enforce social distancing in public spaces. The loss of life is not worth the economic gain. Please let's listen to the healthcare professionals. Sincerely, Neil Tanner. Dear Boca Raton official, I've lived in Boca for over 40 years and have never felt more afraid than I do now. I understand that people in the city council and those who oversee the city parks are seriously thinking about opening city parks and even the whole city before credible health professionals advise it. This is a recipe for disaster. If we do not continue to stay home, the virus will spread, further people will sicken and die. We will endanger our healthcare professionals and vulnerable populations needlessly. I'm 75 years old and it's dangerous for me to even go to the market or to get gas. This premature reopening will make it even more dangerous for me and thousands of others in Boca and elsewhere. Please do not reopen Boca until the grown-ups give permission. Best, Mike Budd. Dear Commissioners, I'm writing you as a relatively new resident of Boca Raton. I've worked here at FAU for over 10 years, but moved to Boca late last year for personal reasons. My experience has been very positive and I have enjoyed everything Boca has to offer. However, I'm writing you today because I'm very concerned to hear rumors that there are individuals, both citizens and members of the Boca Raton city government, who wish to retract or eviscerate the March 27th stay home emergency order from our city manager. This is despite no evidence that COVID-19 cases are on the decline or have even plateaued. It appears many have declared golf an essential activity. Many others say that the emergency order is a violation of their civil liberties. Others point out that the economic impact of this emergency order. Unlike many of these individuals, I don't pretend to be a constitutional scholar. I'm a scientist. I do understand how viruses function and how this specific deadly virus is so very easily transmitted. I also understand that there's currently no way to control the spread of COVID-19 except social isolation. I'm pretty sure that viruses don't respect borders nor social class. Reopening the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca will spread the virus both to and from our community. These civil libertarians propose this would be avoided simply by practicing social distancing. One only has to look at the recent reopening of the Jacksonville area beaches to see the absurdity and disingenuous of this assertion. In addition to being a scientist, I also believe in capitalism. I can see the effect this virus has on our economy. It has affected me personally, but I would ask these persons if they could please explain to me how they equate short-term economic benefit with the almost certain loss of human lives. I could go on, but I believe I've made my point. Simply stated, this demand to return to normal isn't driven by a desire for civil liberty. It's driven by greed and an almost pathological lack of compassion for their fellow citizens. Please don't let this happen to our community. Bob Zoller, new Boca Raton resident. Keep our city closed until it is safe for life. Saving one life is like saving the world. Not enough testing, not safe enough. David Carmi. To whom it may concern, I'm a native Florida and a loyal voting citizen of Boca Raton since 1993. There is no hardship in staying inside and avoiding close contact with other people. The difficulty is losing an income, not working, not being able to pay rent, and so on. Compare our situation with World War II. This is a much more survivable situation as long as we practice social distancing. It is currently the only medicine we have to avoid a greater catastrophe and having more people die. Keep all public spaces closed and instead suggest other forms of amusement to keep people at home. This is not a hardship and government would be performing their duties. Thomas Bagley. This was a repeat, sorry. Please do not open beaches, parks, and other public sites to the general public in order to resume normal activities at this time. This will inevitably lead to greater spread of the COVID-19 virus, more deaths, and greater delay of the recovery of the economy. The prudent decision is to delay the reopening until there is availability of more testing and contact tracing, at which time more informed decision-making can occur. Thank you, Sharon Margulies, 17636 Ashburn Way, Boca Raton. Really bad idea. No need for me to go through the reasons. I'm sure you know all of them. We can wait a bit longer. Richard Fenton, 17461 Via Capri, Boca Raton. The police and sheriff's department do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces like beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax the stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen in Boca. Please do not open Boca too quickly. James Bodenheimer, Boca Raton resident and taxpayer. I implore you not to be too hasty to reopen beaches, parks, or any public spaces in Boca Raton until you are absolutely certain that it's safe. We don't need a recurrence of COVID-19. Better to be safe than sorry. Carol Makovsky, Boca Raton. My name is Victoria Malazzo. I'm a City of Boca Raton resident. I am completely and emphatically against opening up the facilities Councilman Thompson has proposed. In no uncertain terms, we cannot gamble lives for the recreation and pleasure of people who only think of themselves and not the health and welfare of the general public. There is no rapid testing in place, no program of tracking and containment, and the social distancing as it stands now is appalling. There is no downward trend of cases and deaths in Boca or Palm Beach County. What are you thinking, Andy Thompson? This is reckless and overly premature proposal, not based on facts and science, but rather big money pressure from organizations like the Boca Raton Resort. Not smart, Andy. Thank you, a concerned resident and voter. Good evening, Boca community leaders. It is with a heavy heart that this needs to be written and shared, but I beg that you heed this response with a clear perception of our future and the necessary compromises and sacrifices that are necessary for now so that we can return to a version of normalcy. Please don't repeat what other Florida leaders have done and embarrass the citizens with short-sighted decision-making. If we have Emergency Order 20004 in place, then allowing citizens to go to public places such as beaches and parks does not move the needle forward in saving human lives. The beaches and parks were closed because the population was not able to keep 6 feet apart and gather safely. The police were not able to enforce the orders. As the governing body in saving your city's citizens, I find it very irresponsible to open places where people gather when trying to flatten the curve. Performing stay in place is not fun for any of us, and doing this once is enough for all of us. If we open these locations when Florida is peaking in numbers, you are handing out death certificates by opening these locations. The numbers across the country elevated to over 41,000 within 8 days. Florida has already lost 764 people. I ask you, the City of Boca Raton, to care more about people than stimulating the economy. I ask you to be a leader in holding strong to the orders in place and not put any of us in harm's way. Please consider us the people first and foremost. Your support is imperative to save not just our lives, but our livelihoods. Blair Wilson, Boca Raton resident, father, husband, chef, restaurateur, and fellow citizen. To whom it may concern, I realize that on Monday, April 20th, the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District will be discussing the issue of reopening the City of Boca Raton. I am a resident and deeply concerned. Please consider the ramifications of this action. The only weapon we have to fight the coronavirus is social distancing. Opening up our city too soon against the advice of healthcare professionals, experts in the field of pandemic protocol, and virologists could very well be catastrophic. We have already witnessed what has happened in countries where stay-at-home orders were lifted too quickly. If we allow this to happen, there will be many more infected. Our healthcare professionals have been working tirelessly, putting their lives on the line to save those stricken with the deadly disease. Please keep the stay-at-home order in place for a while longer so that more people do not die unnecessarily. Thank you, Karen Dorfman. Please keep the beaches closed. It's humans versus virus, and the virus will win. Mark Platt, Boca Raton. Hello. Please heed the instructions and warnings of the best scientific minds in the country. Do not prematurely open the city and its resources. We currently don't have sufficient testing to protect people. I'm not willing to sacrifice any of my family and friends so that someone can play golf or walk on the beach. I'm a teacher who is sent home and teaching online. I want to teach the classroom this fall. If we are not careful, this will not happen. History teaches us what will happen. The 1918 flu pandemic had too many cities open prematurely. The second wave of infection was worse than the first. Please, please, please do not let this happen here. Thank you. Kathleen Moorhead, 6029 Glendale Drive, Boca Raton. Please do not reopen beaches, parks, and other public sites to the general public in order to resume normal activities at this time. This will inevitably lead to greater spread of the COVID-19 virus, more deaths, and greater delay of the recovery of the economy. The prudent decision is to delay the reopening until there is availability of more testing and contact tracing, at which more informed decision can be made. Thank you, Sharon Margulies, 1736 Ashburn Way, Unit B. That may have been a repeat, sorry. Boca must have already 20 plus deaths, 6 times the state's average. No one publishes the data, but it's obvious from Palm Beach County stats. Until we do not know for sure Boca's deaths caused by COVID-19, no change of regulations should be allowed, not even their discussion. Publish them in the local newspapers. People should know. Gabriel Farkas, 500 Southeast Meisner Boulevard. Just a few more. For the well-being of everyone in Palm Beach County, I beg you to keep the parks and beaches closed for the foreseeable future. The resources for patrolling the beaches are not on the budget. People will not make good choices and keep social distance. We have seen this during spring break. I fear for my family, my children, and grandchildren, and cannot urge strongly enough to please reconsider and do not reopen. I understand people are bored and anxious. We are all feeling the effects of this crazy COVID. My dearest daughter came off the ventilator today after 14 days, and we pray for her recovery. For me, this is very personal, as I have known this young woman since she was 18 months old. Please, 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 Stay closed long enough for us to make past this crisis we remain in. Thank you for your consideration, Sharon Sullivan. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and in stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries and relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There is no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. My entire household is immunocompromised and at risk. This includes children who cannot be in school during this time. Please do not open Boca or any surrounding areas until we have far fewer new cases and scientists are in agreement. Please take your direction from scientists and doctors, not politicians. Sona Care Shornden. I was shocked to read Boca was even considering reopening right now. I read two things this morning. The first was from a longtime trusted Republican news source, James Dupree. 4 straight days with over 2,000 deaths reported in the U.S. There will be more deaths this week in the U.S. due to coronavirus than your entire year of H1N1 swine flu in 2009 to 2010. The numbers are not even starting to decline in PBC. The next thing I read was your decision to even entertain the idea of reopening now. My first thought was you must be insane, but since that is not a valid argument, I decided to send you the following valid points instead. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what happens in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There is no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. As a resident of Palm Beach County, your decisions affect all of us. That you would consider imperiling the entire county, not to mention Broward to the south, is beyond my comprehension. I pray that you will be given the wisdom that will enable you to reconsider. Sincerely, Elizabeth Rump. Please do not reopen Boca. The healthcare workers are already overwhelmed and our police force cannot handle the additional stress of monitoring people. The parks and beaches were closed because people were not doing their part in complying. Isn't it worth it to stay closed until the danger is past? If you vote for opening Boca, then you will have blood of additional deaths on your hands. Please listen to the health experts. Don't open Boca. Barbara Lipton, 8709 Carmel Mountain Way. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this today as a concerned resident of Palm Beach County, imploring you to resist opening the city as requested by some of your residents. The reasons to not do so are many and include that police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public places. The beaches and parks were closed because people could not practice social distancing. We've already seen what happens in countries that relax the stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches and parks and public spaces in Boca will go to other communities. Thank you for your consideration. I have faith that you will do the right thing for your city, county, and state by staying closed at this time. Sincerely, Ann Melikowski. To whom it may concern, I'm very much against the proposed reopening of Boca's beaches, parks, and city at this time. As a resident of Palm Beach County, the reopening will be devastating. Florida is a unique state, and that is densely populated with elderly residents, young residents, and visitors. We need to listen to the health professionals, virologists, and experts who have said we cannot get complacent in open cities until we are sure we're ready. At this point, Florida, and in particular Palm Beach County, is not at its peak of the virus, as we can see the increase in cases and deaths as reported each day. To combat this disease, we need to work together. There's no vaccine, there's no medication approved to fight the disease if contracted, and of most importance, there's not been enough testing, especially in Palm Beach County. It makes no sense to open areas in Boca Raton and have residents of Boca bring the virus to close surrounding cities, or have residents of surrounding cities enter Boca and then bring the virus back home to their cities. The only weapon we have is social distancing, wearing gloves, masks, and staying inside. The beaches, parks, and cities should remain closed, as we see that many people cannot be trusted to socially distance and wear gloves and masks. As you see in the news where the Jacksonville beaches are opened, regardless of the rules, there are people all over the beach not paying attention to the requirements set forth, enabling the mayor of Jacksonville to open the beaches. It is on the news today that if the residents continue to pay no attention to the rules, the beaches will be closed again. Does Boca Raton really want to go through this at the expense of their residents who follow the rules? This is a selfish act and unfair to the majority of residents who do not want the city opened yet. First and foremost should be the concern and the safety of the residents, and not done for political reasons of the minority's loud voices who demand to open the city regardless of what scientists, doctors, and nurses say. Keep beaches, parks, and the city closed at this time to help slow the spread of coronavirus and protect the residents of Boca Raton and Palm Beach County. Thank you, Debbie Sierra. Please do not consider reopening the beaches at this time. We need more time to assess the situation and determine what consequences that action may have. Thank you, Suzanne and Aaron Pepis. To opening our city, it's inexcusable unless there is something definitely wrong with the mental capacity of our officials. Do not ignore the advice of healthcare professionals, virologists, and experts. You are not the expert. You are obviously sycophants to the governor and Donald. Our police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches and parks and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. And the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. Are we to ignore what we have seen show that Florida is the land of imbeciles? There is no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. You should be ashamed of yourselves. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca will spread the virus. And this is from Lynn. Please do not jeopardize all that we have successfully done to stop the spread of the coronavirus. This would be like stopping your full course of antibiotics just when you started to feel better because they're working. Marjorie Hockman. It's too soon for opening up our parks. We don't have enough police for proper enforcement of social distancing. Opening the parks early will encourage those of us with too much time on our hands to mingle, seniors, teenagers, and college students. It's a prescription for overloading our medical system when we've been doing so well with staying at home. Opening up the parks too soon is a recipe for creating a high infection death rate in PVC. Sharon. A vote against opening our public areas until appropriate testing is available. Barbara Silver, Highland Beach. As to opening the beaches, are you really ready for the lawsuits that will happen due to allowing more deaths than truly necessary? Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public places such as beaches, parks, and in stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces will spread it. Peace, gentle hugs, positive vibes, prayers, blessings for all. Donna Mae Evans. There are hundreds of thousands of people who want to be tested in Palm Beach County. Opening of the city, beaches, and parks will spread the virus to thousands more and cause thousands of deaths in our area in the next several months. The data is clear globally and shows opening too soon will mean that you will be killing many more residents of Boca Raton and surrounding areas. Hope Klauber. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling will spread this to other communities. If we stop everything again, it will be worse. Barbara Wilston. Continue to observe social distancing in public spaces as our lives are in danger if it isn't observed. All health officials are in agreement that we should stay at home, at least until everyone can be tested. Joy Scher, Valhalla Drive, Delray Beach. Please keep public places closed. Susan Sibley. Simply put, to even consider premature opening the beaches and or the city is unconscionable. Our police and other resources are already stretched. This is beyond irresponsible. This must be gradual and responsible reopening. Our numbers have not leveled off to the danger the community's needs. By premature opening one town while others are tempering theirs, you are literally inviting an influx of non-residents to invade the town. This is irresponsible. South Florida is watching and judging your actions. And that's from Susan Edens. Those who want to reopen the city are ignoring the sage advice of healthcare professionals, epidemiologists, and healthcare workers all over the country and turning the Boca Raton parks and beaches into breeding grounds for the virus. This is exactly why Governor DeSantis closed all the beaches in the first place, because after spring break, many caught the virus and some died. Without medication and proper testing, we cannot know who is sick and not know who is carrying the disease. We do not have these yet. We also do not know how to police the beaches and parks to ensure social distancing and safe behaviors. Should we in good conscience demand our police risk their lives so that selfish citizens can play on the beaches and parks? We do know that if we stay home and keep others away, we will not spread the virus, and we are acting selflessly as good American citizens. Marianne Andrea. We in the South Florida area have been trying to fight the coronavirus by following social distancing and following the CDC guidelines by remaining at home unless absolutely necessary. The results have been good in the event that the virus is on the beginning of a plateau. However, too many cases have gone untested and too many people have needlessly died due to inadequate testing and lack of medication. Now is not the time to give up these measures. Now we must continue to fight the virus by staying out of the crowds and away from others, lest we surge the contagion. Testing and medication would greatly help, but isolation and staying at home helps more. We do not have the necessary means to police ourselves and others. We have had many police officers sick and some dead, and the real reason parks and beaches were closed all over the area is because we did not socially distance ourselves. In other countries, including the much praised Hong Kong and Singapore, where they seem to beat the virus, we see an upswing in cases when they loosen the rules about staying away from each other, staying home and staying socially distant. Opening parks and beaches is opening up the window of the coronavirus before it is healed. Do not have dead bodies all over due to the selfishness of people who want to go to the beach. This would be the travesty of a lifetime. Mariana Pasadoma. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. There are no treatments, there are no cures, there's no vaccine. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches and parks will spread the virus. Do not open yet. Kathy Hart. Most likely, oh, dictator, so please excuse errors. I feel that. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public places in Boca will spread it to other communities. Please do the right thing and protect your citizens. Thanking you in advance, Gail Silverman. We need to listen to our healthcare professionals. Reopening prematurely will likely cause another spike and negate our efforts so far. We do not want any more people to get sick. We do not want to overtax our healthcare workers or facilities. Teresa Spurgeon. Please vote no in reopening beaches and parks. To the Boca Raton Council and Parks Department, I read with great concern that the City of Boca Raton will be considering reopening beaches and parks at Tuesday's council meeting. I write to urge you in the strongest possible terms to resist the pressure to reopen this time. Governor DeSantis has said that he supports the reopenings only if people follow social distancing guidelines, but we can see from Jacksonville's recent beach openings, stir crazy Floridians throw caution to the wind in their excitement, to quote this article on CNN. The scene at Jacksonville Beach wasn't one of caution in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. Crowds cheered and flooded the beach when police took the barriers down. Social distancing seemed to be the last thing on anyone's mind Friday. There were very few masks. The parks and beaches were originally closed because the public were not practicing social distancing, and what happened in Jacksonville shows that people still are not prepared to take responsibility for the health of their communities. Police do not have the resources to enforce safe behavior. Experts warn that continued social distancing is the only way to flatten the curve, to keep our hospitals from becoming overwhelmed, and to keep the infection death rates as low as possible. This helpful article, and there's a link here for an article to read, with easy to understand graphics, does a great job explaining the reasons why social distancing works. It's a shame that people are being encouraged to harm their own health and the health of their fellow citizens just to score political points with those who refuse to look at the science. There is no moral scenario in which the economy or recreational freedoms are more important than the health and life of our people. Please vote no on relaxing quarantine measures at this time. Heidi Rabinowitz, citizen, Boynton Beach, Florida. Nothing should be reopened at this time. It's too soon. The virus must stop spreading and more people need to be tested. We must stay at home until then, or we'll have to start over again. Diane and Gary Pierce. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and in stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca will spread the virus. As a Palm Beach County resident, I implore your council to think twice about reopening beaches and parks too soon. Otherwise, people will not social distance on their own. We need many more people to be tested before this decision is made. Please do not put your political party above the health of our citizens. I'm interested in tackling this virus before I venture out. Concerned Palm Beach County resident. To whom it may concern, it is a grave mistake to even consider reopening Boca Raton. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public places, such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling from the beaches will spread the virus. I live in Jupiter. I don't want to die because of your irresponsible and potentially deadly actions and decisions. You will have blood on your hands. There's not enough testing being done to determine who is carrying the virus and asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that the virus will be spread. Use your heads, listen to the scientists, be smart. Otherwise, you will have to deal with your feckless decision and its consequences on your own deathbeds. Colette Witt. Do not even consider opening beaches and parks or shopping. You do not have enough police to enforce social distancing. You will be responsible for spreading the virus further and has been proven in other countries and cities, example, Singapore. How do you equate short-term economic pain with human life? Let's be honest, Boca is a wealthy community. Need to continue social distancing as well as containment. Why don't you focus more on the testing first? That's what will help open Boca quicker. Guess you're just a robot thinking you are immune. Well, you're not, and you better start thinking with scientific facts, even though you don't seem to have a brain. Richard Schaller. The virus is estimated to peak mid-May. A few more weeks of sheltering in place is the best protection we can take to bring the quickest end to the pandemic. We are partially open as needed to keep goods and services flowing. Sunbathing, dining, and restaurants, shopping malls can wait a few more weeks. Consider it the most effective way to full recovery in the shortest time. And that was, again, Richard Schaller. He added more. It is crucial to our economy that Boca does not relax stay-at-home orders prematurely. Testing must be widely available before this is done for the following reasons. The virus will spread and cause more economic havoc than ever. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces. We've already seen what's happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only current weapon we have to fight this virus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling will spread the virus. There's not enough testing being done to determine who's carrying the virus and asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that the virus will spread. People who want to open the entire city are ignoring the advice of healthcare professionals. The beaches, the parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. If we don't continue the stay-at-home practice, the virus will spread and people will get sick and die, including those in Boca. In addition, people traveling will spread it to their communities. We cannot let this happen. Judith Beck. It is not time to open beaches and parks. Opening them will cause many more infections and people will die because of this decision. Jane Tucker. To reopen the beach now would be contrary to the advice of medical professionals, virologists, and public health experts. Please support our first responders who are working at great sacrifice and risk to protect us. Social distancing and proper hygiene must continue, not frolicking on the beach. Linda Cherry. I strongly urge you not to reopen the city of Boca Raton right now. Doing so will endanger the lives of everyone in Boca as well as surrounding cities. What is keeping the infection rate is social distancing and quarantining. The reason for the quarantine stay-at-home order is because people were not practicing social distancing. People will continue to die at a higher rate if the city is prematurely, which is right now when it is not safe. If Boca Raton is open right now, those people who are no longer staying at home or in fact many others in the surrounding areas. Do not open up the city now. Sincerely, Joan Lieberman. Stay closed, stay safe, stay home. Judith Baker. Please be strong about these issues. Keep the city of Boca Raton and all its beaches closed. Follow the advice of health professionals, virologists, and experts. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing. We've already seen what happens in other countries when stay-at-home orders are lifted too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling from the beaches and parks will spread this virus. Bob Nathanson. Please put the well-being of the majority as the most important part of your thought process. To have large groups together at this time is like asking the virus to get worse instead of better. Ellen Crystal. I've just been informed that a meeting is to commence on Monday to consider the reopening of the entire city of Boca Raton and the environs. This is the most unsafe proposal and this inane idea, especially in a state and an area that has a vast senior population. The remainder of the population are also at risk, although our governor wants to open schools because the young people are not affected. That is a falsehood. It is time to listen to health professionals, virologists, and other experts of the danger of spreading the disease where cases are rising daily. Florida is a hotspot state. Thus, mandatory stay-at-home is the only way to stop the spread. Facts matter. Jacksonville opened their beaches. Pictures show that people were not wearing masks and were not social distancing. This will happen here if the city reopens. The short-term financial gain for the future loss of life will be on the hands of everyone who votes to reopen. Look at other places that relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly and the virus spread again. Look at California and New York, with mandatory stay-at-home where the numbers are leveling off. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing and encouragement to stay home. I trust you will vote no to reopening at this time. Dina Drandoff. Please do not open the city. Police cannot enforce social distancing. I know it's hard to be at home. It's boring, but it would be more boring to be in a hospital or to be dead. Please do not do this. Harriet Norden. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces will spread the virus. Jane R. Please be careful not to open the parks before it's safe to do so. Many people are not following the recommendations for masks and keeping a safe distance. Premature openings will only prolong the economic and psychological pain we are suffering. Thank you, Sandy Koyman. Dear sir or madam, it has come to my attention that there is an effort underway to reopen recreational areas in Boca and possibly all of Boca before guidelines suggested the President's coronavirus task force have been met. While I would love to see the day when we can reopen society, I strongly object to the possibility now for several reasons. COVID-19 cases have not abated in Boca. They continue to rise. In fact, Boca and Delray seem to be the epicenter for this virus in Palm Beach County. We still don't have a clue as to how many asymptomatic carriers there may be. While hand washing and social distancing are critical, keeping crowd size down to beaches and parks is likely unmanageable. Who would police those crowds? We need first responders for existing emergencies. We don't need to create new problems for them. If Boca lifts restrictions before other parts of Palm Beach County, who will keep people from other communities from traveling to Boca and vice versa? I have family members on the front line of this pandemic in New York and Pennsylvania. They are overwhelmed with the numbers of patients and deaths they have to deal with daily. We don't want to overwhelm our first responders and hospitals because we opened the valve too soon. That would become a very ugly reality. Please wait until caseloads decrease, better testing leads to better understanding of our local risks, and people don't go rushing out simply because we all have cabin fever. The people who shout the loudest aren't necessarily the ones who make the most sense. Please follow the guidelines set forth by the nation's coronavirus task force. Thank you, Peggy Hollins. Too soon. Please don't open the city. Please don't open the beaches. Life is precious. Please do your part to protect the lives of your residents as well as the neighboring communities. As a former business owner, I am well aware of the economic consequences of keeping the city shut down, but a loss of life can never be replaced. A business can. Please think very seriously about the lives that would be lost by moving too quickly. Michi Wexler. With all the medical intel available, why would you want to risk the lives of people in our community? Revisit your conscience. Dwell in the image of people you love. There is no safety in opening. No benefit that equals the benefit of our survival. Thank you, Sue Rita Goldstein. Do not endanger your community by opening up the city too soon. We will lose stability we've worked so hard to achieve. Marilyn Greenbaum. Please do not open the beaches. They will become a petri dish to spread COVID-19 throughout our state. Our police don't have the manpower to monitor the beaches. People from other places will flock to our beaches and undermine all the sacrifices we've made by self-quarantining. For the safety of our residents, the beaches must remain closed. Yours truly, Linda Mullet. After all our healthcare workers have endured, how could you even think of reopening the beaches so soon? It's unbelievable that you don't care about people's lives, only about money lost. Of course, no one wants to see unemployed people hurting, but jeopardizing lives is criminal. Please, I urge you to wait until it's safe. Thank you, Stephanie Kay. Don't ignore the science, protect our country, Mimi Abramson. We are living in very dangerous times. You can read how many Americans have died from COVID-19 and how many Americans have contracted the virus. What we don't know is how many walking, talking, smiling Americans are carriers of this virus and can spread it to unsuspecting, I moved my eyes off. Unsuspecting people. It's not only senior citizens who have died from this disease. Why would you gamble with the lives of your constituents? Why would you think you can make an assessment of the numbers of carriers that live in our community? This is an unknown, and the scientists are warning us that there can be a second surge worse than the first if we open up too early. To save lives and act smart, hold off for another month to give our statisticians a chance to work the numbers. Why open up businesses where crowds will gather mostly for superfluous purchases? They don't need to go to the mall for a new pair of shoes or a new suit. They can order takeout if they're tired and cooking at home. We all need to sacrifice a little for the good of many. In fact, you equate COVID-19 with a war, then all Americans need to hunker down and follow the directions of doctors and scientists. Please vote for the people, not the pocketbook. Thank you, Harriet Schwartz. Too soon to open Boca. Don't take unnecessary risks. Wendy Weisbard. I am a small business owner in Boca Raton. As a result of the coronavirus, I've had to shut down my business and furlough all of my employees. I understand the importance of getting our city reopened and getting back to business, but as the health experts have clearly pointed out, we need to know who and where the virus is and who is safe to return to work. If we ignore that fact, we can easily begin infecting many more people and ultimately be forced to return to a stay-at-home order again, which will prolong the ultimate safe reopening of our economy. I am being economically impacted by the current shutdown, and I'm not willing to sacrifice the health of my employees, friends, family, and myself at this time just to be able to save put some money back into our pockets. Those who wish to reopen the city are ignoring the advice of health professionals, virologists, and experts. Instead of citing the proper hand washing and social distancing should continue while the city is reopened. We cannot let this happen. We know that if we do not continue to stay at home, the virus will spread, people will sicken and die. We will endanger our healthcare professionals and our vulnerable population at the very least. Our police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces. We've already seen what happens in other countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Right now, the only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces will spread this virus. Until there's a vaccine, please, please, please do not put us all in harm's way. Thank you. Barry Seibel, 16795 Charlie Court, Delray Beach. This is too dangerous. We have lives at stake. This Trump is a sick man, and you have our health at risk. More people to die. Bladen 460 was the email. Please do not allow Boca to open public spaces and businesses. Follow medical guidelines, please. I speak as a Boca senior citizen for myself and dozens of friends. I'm doing what I should to protect the health and well-being of my fellow human beings. Please do the same. Dr. Susan LaDuca. I'm writing to encourage you not to reopen the city. Sheltering in place along with hand washing and social distancing is keeping the virus from spreading. The police do not have resources to enforce the rules to keep us safe. It's too soon to open Boca. Follow the advice of healthcare professionals and protect the vulnerable population. Thank you, Iris Wyman. Somebody shared a graphic. In 1918, Philadelphia prematurely ended its quarantine from the Spanish flu to throw a parade in order to boost morale for the war effort. Some 200,000 people lined the streets on that late September day. Within 72 hours, every bed in Philadelphia's 31 hospitals was filled, and the city ended up with 4,500 people dying from the flu or its complications within a matter of days. What is the proverb? Those who cannot learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. Betsy Gilbert. You will have mass graves all over the state, and it will be worse than New York. Listen to the doctors. Don't you care about saving lives? Arlene Kastner. More disease and death will ensue if things are open too soon. Joan Krottenberg. To whom it may concern, it's come to my attention that there are residents in Boca that do not understand how dangerous COVID-19 is to Floridians. They wish to open Boca Raton. Currently, the only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing because there's no viable vaccine. Already, our first responders, healthcare workers, and police are overwhelmed due to COVID-19. The police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. Just look what happened at Jacksonville. We've already seen what happens in countries, states, and counties that have not instituted shelter in place. See Sioux City, South Dakota, or relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. The spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. Unfortunately, there's not enough testing being done to determine who is carrying the virus and who is asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that the virus will spread. Until there is sufficient testing, contact tracing, and effective treatment, we cannot allow Southeast Florida to become the next hotspot in the USA. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. I am hoping that surrounding counties can come together to form a logical and successful plan to safeguard our communities and not be led by the views of those who don't care about our citizens. Sincerely, Nadine Vandyck. This email is to implore you not to rescind any of the current COVID-19 restrictions for the Boca Raton parks or any of the other areas. Regardless of what the president and some others may be saying, it's important to heed the warnings and advice of health professionals, virologists, and experts who are warning governments not to relax restrictions. To do so would be foolhardy and a gateway to following a reemergence of the virus within our population. People will not properly social distance, and there's no way for our police force to properly monitor such situations. At this critical time in history, I implore you not to put economic recovery concerns above the health and safety of Boca residents. Sincerely, Lindy Levy. Good afternoon. I was horrified to see Andy Thompson on Facebook suggesting that this is time to reopen anything in Boca Raton. The only tool we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing and sheltering at home. This virus is proven to be highly contagious because it's a novel virus, and therefore no one has immunity. It's not just like the flu. There's no vaccine for coronavirus. There's no cure, and we know that 20% of people who catch the virus will develop symptoms that are severe enough to require hospitalization. We also know that people can carry the virus and never develop any symptoms. If the asymptomatic population that presents the greatest threat, asymptomatic carriers of the virus will go into public spaces and will spread the virus to others who will carry it home to their friends and relatives and to work and to all the places that they visit. Hand washing and social distancing will not work if people do not shelter in place. That has been proven over and over again worldwide with this virus. Before there's any talk of reopening any municipality in the state of Florida, experts, the WHO, the CDC, infectious disease specialists, and healthcare professionals have made it clear that there must be certain measures in place. 1, there must be widespread testing to determine who has the virus and is asymptomatic. 2, there must be a decline in hospitalizations, new cases, and deaths for an extended period of time. 3, the healthcare system must not be overwhelmed. There's no way to know how many people are infected anywhere in the state of Florida, because despite what certain talking heads and politicians claim, we are testing very, very, very few people. That is a fact, and it's very important to listen to facts and experts, not talking heads and conspiracy theorists. The virus doesn't care whether we believe it or not. It will make people sick and kill them despite what certain people believe. Any talk of reopening without the above measures in place is highly irresponsible, irrational, and dangerous. I sincerely hope that Boca Raton and the Park District and City Council will heed the warnings and advice of actual world-renowned experts and not bow to pressure from pressure from a few very local, very misinformed people who don't understand how terribly dangerous the virus is to all of us. I further hope that before any steps are taken to reopen any part of any municipality, that those have the power to do so will consult with healthcare providers, infectious disease experts, emergency management supervisors, and those who are responsible for public transport and access to public spaces. Our lives depend on the smart handling of this pandemic. Please be smart. Laura Kane. Please consider the lives are at risk if council takes steps to ease restrictions and open parks, beaches, and commerce to the public. I write because for the first time in my life, I believe that hasty actions to reverse current policies are a threat to my health and my life. Easing of restrictions with no treatment, inadequate testing, availability, and no vaccine on the horizon is a gamble that no responsible body should consider. I respectfully request that you carefully my words when you discuss this action. Respectfully, Gloria Brand. Stephen Cohen, police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces. The beaches and parks were closed because people didn't practice social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Those who wish to reopen the city are ignoring the advice of healthcare professionals, virologists, and experts, instead citing that proper hand washing and social distancing should continue while the city is reopened. We cannot let this happen. We know that if we do not continue to stay at home, the virus will spread, people will sicken and die. We will endanger healthcare professionals and vulnerable populations at the very least. Our police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches and stores. We've already seen what's happened in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Right now, the only weapon we have is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling will spread this disease. Until there's a vaccine, please do not put us in harm's way. Thank you. Stephen Cohen. To whom it may concern, I'm writing as a concerned resident of Palm Beach County. I'm hearing that you may be considering reopening Boca Raton's beaches and parks at this time. I just saw the newscast from Jacksonville where beaches in Duval County were reopened today. It was a mob scene. Police presence was sparse, but the people were there legally, and the police could only suggest social distancing, which people on the beach thought to be a joke. I know that Manatee County is following suit this week and opening their beaches as well, but for only a few hours a day. Fortunately, they are considerably fewer cases of COVID-19 in the northern counties of Florida. They are not as populated as we are in Palm Beach County. They have had very few deaths, unlike our Palm Beach County. I truly fear that if Boca reopens its beaches at this time, we are discovering many more cases of this virus every day. Our entire county population will be put at risk. Our police, our first responders, our medical staffs, and our hospitals could be totally overwhelmed. We've already seen what has happened in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly. We cannot allow that to happen here in Palm Beach County. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Social distancing is the only effective weapon we have. People traveling will spread this. Please stay the course. Let's wait a while longer until we can control this pandemic. Please, please do not open the parks and beaches in Boca at this time. Marlene Solomon. Don't open parks early, it's dopey. It's way too soon to open our parks and other public spaces in Boca. We've waited this long and reasonably good results. COVID-19 hurts all of us in many ways, but it's not a reason to open the doors early and turn a difficult situation into a catastrophe. Don't open parks early, Lee Hiller. I implore you not to open beaches and parks and other public facilities in Boca Raton and neighboring areas. The community does not have the financial or other resources to enforce social distancing regulations. More importantly, any early opening can easily reignite the spread of the virus, and any progress in halting this dreadful disease will be lost. We will only push ourselves back to day one in our battle to conquer this plague. In addition, Boca and surrounding areas has a plethora of senior citizens, those most vulnerable to succumb to the coronavirus. Please consider the negative consequences of a precipitous reopening in this very vulnerable community. Sincerely, Rhoda Chester. Please do not vote to open. We are not ready for this yet. All the weeks of staying home will go to waste. ETG. You jeopardize all the surrounding communities if you open your beaches. All the deaths will be on your conscience. SKK. Sandra Krieger. Please do not open beaches and parks at this time until there's a vaccine for this virus and everyone can be tested. It is not smart to do so. Some young people, as well as some older adults, think they're invincible and do not follow the rules. Thus, the virus can spread. It's too bad this governor doesn't realize this. We are all hurting, but it's better than being dead. S. Feig. Boca Raton council members and municipal representatives, I'm a faculty member at FAU. I hear that certain elements are trying to reopen the beaches, parks, and other areas of Boca, but without proper testing and evaluation, we have no idea the extent of the reach of the COVID-19 virus within Boca Raton and Florida in general. I speak as a relatively healthy person who is not personally concerned about contracting the virus myself, but I am concerned for those of the more vulnerable. Because many can carry the disease without showing symptoms in places, it places us in a very dubious position of evaluation. As a researcher as well, I know it's very unwise to make conclusions before having the needed data to do so. I strongly would recommend you exercise caution not doing so. Places many people's lives at risk. Thank you, Christopher Roden. Sorry. To the Boca Raton City Council, as a resident of Palm Beach County, I am upset that you'd go against health professionals, virologists, and experts who are telling everyone that to prevent deaths, you need to keep social distancing and not reopen beaches and non-essential businesses. Blood will be on your hands if you do not follow the proper protocol that is set up. For now, it's the only defense we have. The police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing. We've seen what is happening in other countries that try to relax the protocol and have had a resurgence in the virus. You cannot equate short-term economic gains with the value of human life. That life could be your parent or child, and then how will you be able to live with that decision? Boca Raton does not have a wall around it. People come and go and will spread the virus to other communities, and we'll be back under quarantine, but this time for longer and with more deaths of our population and medical professionals who are telling everyone to stay home. They want the opportunity to go home to their families when this virus dies down, but because you did not heed the medical and science professionals who are telling you that the only defense we have right now is distancing to keep this novel virus at bay, we will be destined to spend much more time and lives in solving this pandemic. Peggy Alperin. Reopening the city prematurely would be foolhardily. Please exercise careful thought prior to reopening our city. Thank you, Barbara Stewart. I oppose reopening the area before public health officials say it is safe. You should never put economics before public safety. Police departments don't have the resources. People disregard these orders in the past. The beaches were packed. Social distancing is the only way to fight the spread of this virus until a cure or vaccine is available. How will you keep all the people in Boca from traveling to other areas? You will personally be the cause of spreading the virus if you vote to reopen. Louise Rutman. It has come to my attention that the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is scheduled to meet on April 20th. In consideration of the recent order by Governor DeSantis to reopen beaches in Florida, it is my understanding that some are pushing to reopen the entire city of Boca Raton. Please understand that even with the best intentions of the district supervisors and the council, people are not following instructions for social distancing. This was evident over the last few days in Jacksonville, as was reported in a tweet by WFLA News on April 17th, just after 5 p.m. Clearly, everyone wishes to return to a normal life, but this cannot be done without tracking and tracing this virus. Simply put, we don't know how many asymptomatic carriers we have in the general population. We cannot afford to go back to normal life right now. Beaches and parks were closed in the first place because people were not respecting or following rules for social distancing, and they still are not. The police do not have the resources or manpower to enforce social distancing in beaches and parks, not to mention the entire city. Short-term economic struggle and pain does not equate with the loss of human life. It is a false equivalency. We must stay vigilant to fight this virus and win as a city, a state, and as a nation. Boca Raton is not an island unto itself. People traveling from beaches and parks and other public facilities will further spread the virus throughout South Florida and through the state. With no vaccine and no treatment, people die. There is a reason Mr. DeSantis decided to keep schools closed for the rest of the semester. We must do the same for the city of Boca Raton and the parks and beaches. We have seen what has happened in other countries that have relaxed stay-at-home orders. We cannot afford that here. Dr. Tina Pearl. Please make sure masks are still worn and 6 feet apart stays in place when we reopen. Andrea Schwartzberg. Morgan Udell, police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing. We've already seen what happens in countries that relax stay-at-home orders. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public places will spread the virus. There's not enough testing being done to determine who is carrying the virus and asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that the virus will spread. And that was Morgan Udell. Those who wish to reopen the city are ignoring the advice of health professionals, virologists, and the experts, instead citing that proper hand washing and social distancing should continue while the city is reopened. We cannot let this happen. We know that if we do not continue to stay home, the virus will spread, people will sicken and die. We will endanger our healthcare professionals and our vulnerable population at the very least. Our police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing at public spaces. We have already seen what has happened in other countries that relax stay-at-home orders. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Right now, the only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling to the beaches will spread the virus. Please do not put us all in harm's way. Thank you, Miriam Merker. Dear all, as evidenced by the reopening of the Jacksonville beaches, it's premature to reopen public parks and beaches in our area. Please vote no on this resolution to urge the country and to urge the county to do so. Since our area is greatly populated by seniors, the outcome of having COVID-19 spread throughout the community is extremely devastating. Thank you. Sincerely, Harold Lippitz. Police do not have the resources to reinforce social distancing in public spaces. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distances. We've already seen what's happened in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling will spread this to other areas. D. Zinger. Those who wish to reopen the city are ignoring the advice of health professionals, virologists, and the experts. We cannot let this happen. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Florence Straubin. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing. We've already seen what's happened in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. Trump supporters are screaming loudly. We need to be louder. Sue Yuso. Seriously, this spoiled generation can't give something up for a couple more weeks for the greater good. Who have we become in this country that personal sacrifice has no meaning? Ken Sexton. Too early, not safe, virus will return. Keep public places closed, Jerry Stock. We have to be responsible and listen to the experts, not the right-wing extremists, Alan Rosenthal. To whom it may concern, we are very much against the proposed reopening of Boca's beaches and parks. As elderly residents of Palm Beach County, the reopening will be devastating to us. There's nothing medically available at this time to mitigate the coronavirus if you contract it. We moved to Florida to enjoy our golden years, as did millions of other senior citizens. Florida is a unique state in that it is densely populated with elderly residents. We are very susceptible to this virus. We need to listen to the health professionals, virologists, and experts. In order to combat the disease, we need to work together. There's so much that has not been accomplished. There's no vaccine, there's no medication approved to fight the disease if contracted. There's not been enough testing, especially in Palm Beach County. The only weapon we have is social distancing. The beaches, parks, and city were closed because people were not practicing that. Please keep beaches and parks city closed at this time to help slow the spread of the coronavirus. Thank you, Toby and Brian Brown. I'm a citizen of Palm Beach County, and I'm appalled at your proposal to reopen not just the beaches and parks and public spaces, but the entire city of Boca Raton. There's many reasons not doing this prematurely. Here's just a few. There's no adequate testing in Boca nor any other part of Florida to know where clusters or infections, nor are there effective measures to contain those. We have not yet controlled the spread of the coronavirus, and reopening before it's safe will surely cause a resurgence of mass infections. There's no way to equate short-term economic gain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to prevent the uncontrolled spread of infections is social distancing. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling will spread this to other areas. Please listen to health experts and use caution before proceeding with such irresponsible action. Otherwise, all future unnecessary deaths are on your hands. Veronica Lickman. To waste the progress we've made by reopening too soon will send a terrible message to young kids who believe they can't get the disease at the expense of our seniors and those at risk. Listening to our health professionals is the prudent thing to do. In the long run will make us better. Let common sense prevail. Thank you, Paul. The decision to open parks and beaches and business facilities should be guided by experts who can appropriately interpret the information available. There's not been sufficient testing to identify asymptomatic carriers of COVID-19, so the only intervention currently available to reduce the spread of the disease is social distancing. Boca is not an isolated place. People moving around and through Boca's reopened facilities will travel and infect nearby communities. Elaine Patterson. All medical experts tell us we cannot safely open until more testing is available. Otherwise, we will lose everything gained in the last month. In this life-death situation, why take a chance? There's not enough police to ensure social distancing in large areas of the cities and beaches. We know that in our current situation, only social distancing works. Alan Murdoch. To whom it may concern, I'm writing at the interest of public safety. Our police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces. The beaches and parks were closed because people don't practice social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca will spread the virus. Please be socially responsible and withhold the opening of places where crowding will be inevitable for the time being. Thank you, Stacy Schell. I've practiced medicine for over 35 years. Please be assured at this time there's only one tool in our toolbox to fight the coronavirus. That's social distancing. I've searched my medical lexicon for the correct term to describe the idea of opening our beaches and parks. That's batshit crazy. Do you not see what's going on at Jacksonville Beach? Neil Oakham, MD, George Washington University School of Health Science. The worst way to destroy the apparent success of slowing the spread of the coronavirus in Palm Beach County and Boca Raton is to add fuel to the fire, making it easier for the virus to spread again. Regardless of how tempting it may be, the math simply rejects the wisdom of reopening public spaces. It is of the utmost importance to keep these public spaces closed for the following reasons. Police don't have the police resources to enforce social distancing. We've already seen what happens in countries that relax stay-at-home orders too quickly. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. There's not enough testing to be done to determine who is carrying the virus and asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that the virus will spread. We owe it to your medical community to minimize the impact of COVID-19 on their limited resources and their personal health. Thank you for your consideration. Dr. Roger Messenger. Although we are not residents of Boca, we have friends and relatives who live there, and we ourselves frequently shop and dine in Boca. We implore you not to reopen Boca prematurely. We understand the desire to reopen businesses, but virtually all experts say that it's too soon to do so. Doing so will almost certainly cause a resurgence of the virus in Boca and neighboring towns such as the one that we live. Limiting and reopening to such places, beaches, parks, and golf courses will be ineffective because the police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in such places. Thank you for your attention to this email and for your thoughtful consideration of this serious problem. We trust that your decision will reflect the need to protect the health and welfare of not only the residents of Boca, but also the health and welfare of the residents of the Palm Beach and Broward counties and the rest of Florida. Michael Stern and Libby Stern. The push to reopen the beaches and ultimately the entire city at this time is premature. There's not enough testing being done to determine who's carrying the virus and asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that the virus will spread. There's not enough testing being done to determine who's carrying the virus. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. If we do not continue to stay at home, the virus will spread. People will sicken and die, and we will endanger our healthcare professionals and other vulnerable population as well. Those who wish to reopen the city are ignoring the advice of health professionals, virologists, and experts. And finally, there is no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Lauren Martin. I'm a citizen of Palm Beach County, and I'm writing to voice my vigorous objection to the reopening of any public spaces in Boca in the midst of this pandemic. As you are all well aware, there's no vaccine for the virus and testing remains inadequate. The only weapon to control the spread of this disease remains social distancing, which cannot be enforced in public places or stores. A premature return to our former life can easily result in a continued spread of the virus and increase in the loss of human life. This is too high a price to pay for a short-term economic benefit. Please heed the advice of health experts and do not undertake such irresponsible action. Helen Stelznick. Hello, I realize that there's enormous pressure combined with misinformation agitating to reopen public spaces. I have two words: not yet. I have been grateful for Boca Raton leaders for relying on science and reason, so please keep public spaces closed. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing. We've already seen what happens in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling from the beaches and parks will spread this to other areas. There's not enough testing being done to determine who is carrying the virus and who is asymptomatic, virtually ensuring that this virus will spread. We owe it to our medical community to minimize the impact of COVID-19 on their limited resources and their personal health. Sincerely, Karen Leader, Dr. Karen Leader. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what happens in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders. The spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling to the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca and other communities will spread the virus. Do not give in to the minority who are demanding to reopen. Thank you, Mark Schlazer. We're almost through them. To whom it may concern, it was very upset to see that the city is reconsidering opening up. I strongly urge you to consider my son who has asthma, my 77-year-old father, my immunocompromised mother, and my aunt with lupus. I am the person in the household who has to go to the grocery store and take care of everything. I wish we could reopen, but now is not the time. If you reopen, every time I have to go out, there's a huge risk to my family. Please delay the reopening to keep the ones I love safe. People have plenty of opportunity to get fresh air right now, and they can wait a little longer. The numbers keep rising, and this is not the time. This is life or death for folks here in Boca Raton. I will not die, nor will my family, because someone got inconvenienced and could not go golfing. This is on you if you decide someone's beach access is more important than the life of my family. Thank you. Sincerely, Natalia Jefferson. Don't open public spaces yet. Police don't have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces such as beaches, parks, and stores. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what happens in countries with the relaxed stay-at-home orders. The spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca will spread this virus. Helen Herb. This is no time to open beaches and parks in Boca Raton. It can only lead to disaster and wipe out any control over the dreaded virus we all who are staying in and separated from our loved ones are trying to do. Marilyn Weissglass. Dear Boca Raton public leaders, my name is Arlene Houston and I'm a neighbor living in Delray. I'm writing to strongly implore you not to open recreational green and athletic spaces in public in Boca until we have a solid report from the scientific and medical communities saying it's safe to begin to do so. As much as people need to enjoy the outdoors, we must be prudent. To do so before we have actual, not suspected data that COVID-19 is under control would be like playing Russian roulette with the lives of self and others, as New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman put it recently. Specifically, COVID-19 testing is not yet reaching all who need to be tested to determine the true status of infection in our area, and much of the public has not been practicing physical distancing. Both issues are endangering and prolonging the control we seek. Until the former is achieved and the latter is practiced, we need to be patient, caring of others, and very firm. Moreover, I believe Boca is the first municipality to close beaches in Palm Beach County. Certainly, it can continue to do the right thing now. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Arlene Houston. Dear members of Boca Raton City Council, as residents of Delray Beach and neighbors of Boca, and with the full understanding of how much every community and the residents want to return to some semblance of normalcy, we can appreciate the discussion you will be having at your City Council meeting. We hope that all opinions will be heard and respectful, and that any decisions that are reached will be the best interest of every resident who resides in Florida. No matter what the outcome, it's in all of our interest that your decisions are reasoned and well planned out. We know they are weighty, and you surely don't want to regret an outcome that was made in haste and under pressure. We have endured a lot, lost loved ones, and worked hard to flatten the curve of this pandemic. And if a hotspot occurs, we will all pay a heavy price. A little more patience and planning would not be so hard to endure. With respect, Jackie Elian. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing because in public places such as beaches, parks, and in stores, the beaches and parks were closed because people do not practice social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly. The spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public places in Boca to other communities will spread this virus. Thank you, Susan Newman. To whom it may concern, please do not open the beaches, parks, and stores in Boca at this time. From personal observation, many residents are not practicing social distancing. When this happens, as in other countries, when restrictions are relaxed, the virus will spread more quickly. Florida has not hit the peak of the virus yet, and we need to do what we can to keep new infections as low as possible. If the facilities are reopened, people will come in from all over to use the facilities, and this will exacerbate the spread. Please keep social distancing a priority and keep the facilities closed for now. Thank you, Robin Warner. Do not reopen at this time. This should not be a political decision based on a guess by an incompetent politician such as Donald Trump, who does not believe in science, and any of the commissioners who believe he knows anything. Base your decisions on health experts. We have a lot invested in the efforts of our citizens. Open too soon, and if there's a resurgence, which there will be, we will have to do this distancing for longer, and the rebuilding of our economy will take longer with more pain for all. David Kaufman. To whom it may concern, if we have Emergency Order 20004 in place, then allowing citizens to go to public places such as beaches and parks does not move the needle forward in saving human lives. The beaches and parks were closed because the population was not able to keep 6 feet apart. The police were not able to enforce orders. As the governing body of saving your citizens, I find it very irresponsible to open places when people gathering, when trying to flatten the curve. Performing stay at place is not fun for any of us, and doing this once is enough for all of us. If we open these locations when Florida is peaking in numbers, and you are handing out death certificates by opening these locations. The numbers across the country elevated to over 41,000 within 8 days. Florida has already lost 764 people. I ask you, the city of Boca Raton, to care more about the people than stimulating the economy. I ask you to be a leader in holding strong to the orders in place and not put any of us in harm's way. Please consider us, the people, first and most. Sincerely, Malaya Wilson. Police do not have resources to enforce social distancing in public places. We've already seen what happens in countries with relaxed stay-at-home orders. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. People traveling from the beaches and parks to public places will spread the virus. Trump supporters are screaming loudly. We need to be louder. Terry Schwartz. Living in Palm Beach County and having many friends and family who reside in Boca, I'm writing to express my concern regarding a premature opening of the city. People do not observe physical distancing in public spaces. There are not enough resources to enforce it. We do not know that distancing has been successful in keeping cases down and is our only weapon thus far against COVID-19. If we remove this measure, as other countries have experienced, we will see COVID cases begin to increase. Folks traveling to and from Boca after visiting its businesses, parks, and beaches will spread the virus to those in adjacent communities. Testing has been inconsistent and inadequate. Reopening small businesses, golf courses, parks, and beaches is not tenable at this time. It's not worth the risk and shows a reckless disregard for human lives. I implore you to keep the stay-at-home order currently in place until adequate testing of our population is available. Thank you, Ellen Gross. To our concerned local officials, first of all, thank you for your public service, especially in these unprecedented times. I urge you as a local resident to resist understandable but ultimately foolish and short-guided calls to open up our boating areas, beaches, and other public and large private spaces prematurely. The science must guide us and nothing else. Police don't have the resources currently to enforce the social distancing we need to open up yet safely. We've already seen what can happen, given the example of other nations when a society opens up too quickly. While we all understand the economic hardship involved, this cannot ethically or rationally be equated with the loss of human life. Also, Boca is not an island. Your decision will impact the entire state and beyond. Until we have treatment and much, much more widespread testing, especially the antibodies test, social distancing is the only weapon we have to fight the pandemic. Partisan and ill-informed calls to reopen before it is safe to do so must be resisted. Voters will remember and reward officials who have acted irresponsible to save lives. Thank you for your time and consideration, Dr. Cheryl Duckworth. Those who wish to reopen the city are ignoring the advice of health professionals, virologists, and experts, instead citing the proper hand washing and social distancing should continue while the city is reopened. We cannot let this happen. We know that if we do not continue to stay at home, the virus will spread. People will be sick. People will sicken and die. We will endanger our healthcare professionals and our vulnerable populations at the very least. Our police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public spaces. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what had happened in countries and relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be our future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. Right now, the only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca is not an island. Please, please do not put us all in harm's way. Thank you, Miriam Roper. I received an email that the above city council will consider opening up parks and beaches on April 20th and 21st in Boca Raton as soon as possible. This is a very bad idea because we have no testing, no medication in place, and social distancing is the only tool we have to help stop the virus. It is part of South Florida and will affect all of us in one way or another. When the beaches were open in Florida, no one safely self-distanced, nor did they contain the virus. Many got sick and many died. Police do not have the resources to enforce social distancing in public places. The beaches and parks were closed because people were not practicing social distancing. We've already seen what has happened in countries and relaxed stay-at-home orders too quickly, and the spread of the virus will be the future if we allow that to happen here. There's no way to equate short-term economic pain with the loss of human life. The only weapon we have to fight the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. Boca Raton is not an island. People traveling from the beaches, parks, and public spaces in Boca to other communities will spread the virus. And that is from Sandra McCall. And the last one, to whom it may concern, I'm very much against the proposal reopening of Boca's beaches, parks, and city at this time. As a resident of Palm Beach County, the reopening will be devastating. Florida is a unique state, and it's densely populated with elderly residents, young residents, and visitors. We need to listen to the health professionals, virologists, and experts that have said we cannot get complacent in open cities until we are sure we're ready. At this point, Florida, and in particular Palm Beach County, is not at all at its peak of the virus, and as we can see, the increase in cases and deaths as reported each day. To combat this disease, we need to work together. There's no vaccine, there's no medication proven to fight this disease if contracted, and most important, there's not enough testing, especially in Palm Beach County. It makes no sense to open areas of Boca Raton and have the residents of Boca bring the virus to the close surrounding cities and have residents of surrounding cities enter Boca and then bring the virus back to their cities. The only weapon we have is social distancing, wearing gloves, masks, and staying inside. The beaches, parks, and cities should remain closed as we see that many people cannot be trusted to socially distance and wear gloves and masks. As you see in the news where Jacksonville beaches were opened, regardless of the rules, there are people all over the beach not paying any attention to the requirements set forth, enabling the mayor of Jacksonville to open their beaches. It is on the news today that the residents continue to pay no attention to the rules. The beaches will be closed again. Does Boca really want to go through this expense of their residents who follow the rules? This is a selfish act and unfair to the majority of residents who do not want the city to open yet. First and foremost should be the concern for the safety of residents and not done for political reasons or the minorities' loud voices who demand the city open regardless of what scientists, doctors, and nurses say. Keep beaches, parks, and city closed at this time to help spread the slow of coronavirus and protect the residents of Boca Raton and Palm Beach County. Thank you, Debbie Sierra. That's all.
Brianne, thank you very much. That was a lot. And at this time, the public, in accordance with the new meeting procedures in virtual forum, they may call in and have their 3 minutes. They may identify themselves and give us their address if they would prefer. So, anybody who wants to call in, please do so at this time.
Madam Chair, I'm here if I could speak.
Who is this?
It's Deputy Mayor Jeremy Rogers.
Welcome, Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much. Please go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So Deputy Mayor Jeremy Rogers, Boca Raton, but certainly here speaking purely on my own behalf right now. Thank you, commissioners, for holding this meeting. It's great to be doing the people's work. I'm sure you guys all agree in this troubled time. And God bless you, Ms. Harms, for that was a lot of reading and you rock that. So good job. I'd like to commend Commissioner Craig Ernst for attempting to open up the beaches. And Mr. Ernst, I still remember your campaign signs that said open parks. And you're keeping your word. I appreciate it. It seems like there's a lot of false data and hearsay being passed around on some of those other comments. I think we need facts over fear. I'm not going to address all of them. A lot of those claims were partisan and political. I'm not going to address that because the claims themselves are partisan and political. I want to get to the meat, though. You would think that we're discussing forcing people to leave their homes, that they have to leave their homes. We're not. We're talking about opening up public land for passive distance use. And it's not, your land. It's not my land. It's the people's land. We're not talking about opening rock concerts. And I don't believe the CDC has recommended that we close beaches, despite a lot of claims. There's been a lot of concerns about non-residents crowding our beaches. Easy answer. Push to open the beaches to only the residents who have beach passes as it is. No interaction is needed to see the beach pass. And we could open it to 50% capacity, 25% capacity, however low we need to. I have friends who have personally headed up to the Orlando beaches just to visit them. I would push also to open up the golf courses for our residents. You don't get more distance than being out on a golf course. You don't need a cart necessarily. You can make it walking only. And honestly, if it was up to me, I'd open it to an honor system. We don't have to collect those fees right now if we don't have to. This entire shutdown began with the concern that millions were going to die and we were going to overrun the ICUs. Those models have collapsed, including the models that accounted for social distancing. The data has shown that's not going to be the case. The goalposts have been moved. New data demands new decisions. Let's set some facts straight. 0 people under 25 have died from COVID-19 in Florida. Every death is tragic, and there have been deaths of the young across the country. But to put in perspective, for children aged 0 to 14, this is off the CDC's website for February 1st to April 11th, the death rate for influenza was 25 times higher than COVID-19. We don't close down recreation for influenza. I could go on more. Across Florida, 90.7% of the people 65 and under who have tested positive aren't needing hospitalization. If you count all the people who haven't had tests that clearly have it, the rate goes way down. It was mentioned feckless leadership. Feckless leadership is allowing a vocal minority, and I'll say even a majority, to restrict the rights of free people to public land, to their land. This thing primarily spreads in close quarters with extended exposure. There's no safer place to be than the sea air and sunshine, safely distanced from others, passively enjoying our beaches. It's time to open them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rogers. We appreciate it. Okay, next caller, please.
Hey, this is Greg Delanis. Can you hear me?
Hi, Greg. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, guys. First and foremost, our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody that's affected. And my heart goes out to you guys and the city council who's going to take up the same conversation tomorrow night. I listened to everything that Brianne just read. I would say almost a third of it is copy and paste. And there's a lot of fear mongering going on in there. You know, the suggestion is to do this in a thoughtful and a safe way. I think that the vocal minority has spoken. I think people, are listening to the media who are spinning false narratives, and there are smart and safe ways to do this. And I think it's on our elected officials to figure that out. Nothing is going to be open short term. And my ask is that we start planning for it, what we can do. So when they do say go, we're ready to do it in a way that we can manage it, we can resource it, we can staff it, and keep people safe, but also give people the opportunity and the freedoms to enjoy our beaches and parks. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Next caller, please.
I would be happy to talk. You can hear me?
Need a name, Madam Mayor and Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Gordon.
It's
Hello?
Nancy Feinberg.
Nancy Jo Feinberg. I appreciated what Deputy Mayor Rogers said and some of the other comments. As somebody who really enjoys golf, I think there are ways to perhaps open some of these facilities and keep them where it's not jam-packed. Have only members, beach and park district members with permits use the beaches, maybe watch the times that they use. But perhaps we could begin to open them a little bit slowly and with some intelligence.
Thank you. Mr. Gorin, did you have something you wanted to say?
Just that the speaker identify herself, which she did. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next caller, please. Give a few seconds. Anyone else? Okay, at this time, we are going to close public requests, and thank you very much. Thank you, Brianne, and thank you to the public for everything. At this time, it's time for the approval of the minutes of the board meeting held on March 2nd, 2020. These minutes are found on page 6 of your agenda packet. Do I hear a motion?
Madam
Chairman.
Mr. Engel was first, and Mr. Rollins, was that a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Joanne, would you please do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Rollins,
He's on mute.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, it's time for our regular business. We're going to go to the Ocean Strand Declaration found on page 11 of your agenda packet. Mr. Horowitz, you prepared this for us. Would you like to weigh in on this, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be happy to. At the last board meeting, the board directed our office to prepare a restrictive covenant which would effectively limit the use options for the property generally known as Ocean Strand. The restrictions have some standard boilerplate language, but the operative provision states that any and all future uses of the property, again, we're talking about the Ocean Strand property, shall be limited to open space, which shall include parks and recreation uses as determined by the district, consistent with Chapter 2003-313 Laws of Florida. That's our charter, as may be amended from time to time. All future uses of the property shall be subject to the public review and approval of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District. For the record, these restrictions, once they're recorded, can only be revised, amended, modified, or terminated by a majority of the qualified electors of the district voting in a special referendum election. So we present them to you consistent with the discussion at the last board meeting for your consideration. If they happen to be approved this evening, they'd be executed and recorded in the public records of Palm Beach County, and they would run with the land. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Horowitz. Do I hear a motion to accept this declaration for Ocean Strand?
Move to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Rollins seconds. Joanne, is there any discussion? Any questions? Yes, Mr. Ernst?
Madam Chair, and it's really a question to council is, well, I'm very supportive of the phraseology that he has there for open space, including parks and recreation use for the benefit of citizens and residents of the district and the general public. My question is, as a group, are we doing anything that would be unintended consequence of this? Specifically, if we're going to have kayak or beach chair rental or any other or parking rental of any kind that would, is this going to limit us, or that we're gonna have to go back to our attorneys to find out we can rent space to a charity group?
If I may, Madam Chair, so long as the use that's contemplated is a park and rec use as determined by this board would ultimately get to determine which uses were permissible and consistent with the terms of these restrictions. That could include, as you referenced, kayak use, boat launches, ancillary uses such as parking to accommodate those types of uses. But any one of those future uses would come before this board for consideration.
So in just expanding upon that, if our friends that we have supported for many years at Gumbo Limbo had a need for specific space for additional rehab services and were to provide us with a rental income for usage of space, is that also for public use? That would be acceptable.
I know we've had some conversations over recent time regarding, leasing and the ability of the district to rent or otherwise, let out its property. The way these restrictions are worded, that any use, again, would come before this board, and so long as that proposed use was consistent with the district's charter and found to be a parks and rec use consistent with these restrictions, would be considered a permissible use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ernst. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. Joanne, would you please call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes,
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
motion passes. Thank you. Item number 3, Ocean Strand Budget Amendment. Brianne?
Commissioners, at our previous meeting, we talked about setting aside $75,000 for a phased approach to get Ocean Strand open. I did meet with city staff prior to the shutdown, and we started putting a plan together. So we'd like to revisit that and hopefully have that. But in the meanwhile, we looked at setting aside money in our budget so that we could actually do it when we reopen and we can start working together again. So on page 17 of your agenda packets is resolution number 2020-03. A resolution of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District of Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, providing for an effective date. And this basically takes $75,000 out of our reserves and puts it into a line specifically dedicated to Ocean Strand. So we need a motion tonight to approve this.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Mrs. Wright seconds. Discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes,
Commissioner Wright.
Yep.
Thank you.
motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, on page 22 of your agenda packet, there is the Moody's Services application discussion. When we originally discussed this, it was thought that if we did not want the Moody's rating, it would not be public record. But after consulting with our district council, actually, even if it's in a draft form, it would become a public record. So I just wanted to put this into your heads so that you understand that if we don't want it, it's still public record, no matter what the outcome. So do you want to have some discussion on this?
Madam Chair, I think the concern was more about the fees. And so, Brianne, would you like to elaborate exactly what the cost of this would be?
Yes, the fees, we spoke with Moody's representatives. Both Commissioner Ernst and I had a call with them. I think it was the first week of the closure. So it's been a few weeks. We did talk with them. It's $6,000 for the rating, and then every year after that, it would be $3,000. We've included in your agenda packets, there's some language in the application that they put forth that we'd have to get amended, which we had Jacob review. And then we also did have confirmation that the indicative rating does become a written record, as Commissioner Vogelsang mentioned. But the fee overall is $6,000 and $3,000 a year there moving forward.
Mr. Horowitz. Oh, go ahead, Craig. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to refresh the board that the purpose of this is to one, validate the overall district's financials and give us guidance, because we have a very limited group And gives you a benchmarking compared to other public entities, and it'll also give you a credit rating, which would allow you, albeit small. Many years ago, the district did have a revolving credit facility, and a revolving credit facility is typical for a business to have for such emergencies. And so as our capital base has thinned, part of the process that we all agreed is to take another look at our banking relationships. And part of that also was looking for a credit facility. Now, obviously, this credit facility is not intended for a large purchase or anything. It's just for a very limited basis of things. And we thought more in the nature of less than $1 million or so. The credit facility will allow you to get the best rating if we ever had to use it. I like to consider it our giant credit card that we hope never to use. So there's two benefits to it. One is validating and giving guidance in comparison to other districts, other public entities. So the credit rating will help you there. And number two, the credit rating is there to give you lower pricing on your credit facility should you choose to get one.
Commissioners?
Madam
I
Chair,
still don't. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Mr. Rollins?
I'll let Aaron go.
Oh, Aaron, go ahead. Aaron?
I don't know. I think we should just table this. I don't see the point in us doing this and spending the money to do this. I don't see why we should compare ourselves to other special districts. We're not a business. We keep $2 million in our reserves. So if it's for taking out loans for less than $1 million, what's really the point in it?
Mr. Rollins?
You know, I read through the documents and reflected on the discussion, you know, and I appreciate Craig bringing it up so we could discuss getting a rating. I think at one point we were looking for a rating because we had anticipated borrowing a tranche of funds to develop the Boca National Golf Course. And discussion, I believe, with Jerry Ford, you know, he helped to facilitate some investigation to this. But I think Jerry felt that, you know, timing was not really right for us. We're probably at our, I think we're still a very credit-worthy organization, but I think from a standpoint of, you know, borrowing power, we're probably at a lot different place than we were 5 to 10 years ago, because our reserves, you know, have diminished because of our efforts to open and develop the golf course, the Boca National. I feel like right now it might be premature to go with a Moody rating, especially since there is a slight chance that we may get a rating that we don't like. And once, even in a rough draft, they still could put that out to public if it was requested. From what I read in the documents, they have liberties that they can take with that. I think I would support and side with Aaron that we should, table this for now. And I don't know how long it takes to get a rating, but I don't think that we're going to be looking at borrowing any money in the short term. And I think there's still some uncertainties about where our financials are going to go in the future with this golf course.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Mr. Engel?
I'd have to agree with Ms. Wright and Mr. Rollins. I don't think the timing is right. And even if it's a 1 in 100 chance that we get a rating that we don't like, there's still that chance. And there's still the chance in turn that this information could be made public. So rather than put my hand into a hive with just one bee to get the honey, I'd rather play it safe. And in addition, right now, this is a very uncertain time. We don't know what the next 3 to 6 months or a year is going to bring. We don't know about real estate values. We don't know what's going to happen to our tax base. And to go ahead and try and get a credit facility now, try to get a credit rating, excuse me, people who would give us the credit rating will take these things into account. I'd rather play safe than sorry.
I agree with Commissioner Engel, Wright, and Rollins, because to spend this kind of money, I mean, right now for a credit card that we may never use, I just would rather defer it until a later time and revisit it at another meeting down the road. Mr. Gorin, do we need a motion to defer this?
You would need, respond, a motion to table to a time uncertain, which would be seconded and carried. It would leave the door open for future removal from the table for future consideration. This way you're not beholden to a particular time to actually hear it back again until someone wants to take it off the table.
Okay, do I hear a motion to defer it to an undetermined time?
I'll make a motion to defer the Moody's credit rating to undetermined time.
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Rollins, was that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Joanne, Mrs. Wright made the motion, Mr. Rollins seconded. And do we have any more discussion?
Well, what I will point out, yes, my message would be is that, look, it's at the pleasure of the board what you'd like to do. However, when you really need the credit rating is not the time to go look for a credit rating. And I would tell you, we don't need the credit rating, so tabling it is fine. However, this is the best time for you to understand where you're going financially. This district does not have a CFO. We have a part-time accountant and a part-time retired financial director. And that caused a lot of the heartache of going to the financing for the golf course. So we embarked on several projects that took us down a path that, led us to where we're at today, kind of waiting for a response with the city. So, I respectfully believe that you should get the rating because it's a good investment in information and knowledge, and it'll compare you and give you better guidance going forward when you do need money. But if the commission feels strongly not to do it now, that's the choice of the group. I respect it.
Thank you, Mr. Ernst. Any more discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
No.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes, Joanne. Okay, on page 46 of your agenda packet are the invoices and payroll. Mr. Ernst, would you please?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of payroll and invoices for a total of $26,408.26.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Engel seconds. Any discussion, commissioners?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I just had one question. If Brienne could refresh my memory on the last item, the value engineering study we had with Landscapes Unlimited. What project was that for?
That was for the golf course.
Okay, and what was the value engineers?
Wayne had them do the value engineering. He has a $5,000 threshold. And so he had that done to value engineer the maintenance buildings that he was planning on building.
Okay. Thank you.
It's an older invoice.
Yeah, I see that. I just had forgotten all about that and didn't remember, authorizing that. But you say that was within the $5,000. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions?
One question, all that's on hold now, right? Like Wayne's
I have an
not
update
getting
during-
any.
We have an update
things.
on that.
Okay.
Okay, no more discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. Comes now to our reports and discussion items. Ms. Harms?
Yes. I have a couple items here. First of all, the MOU for Gumbo Limbo, as far as the tower goes, we are working with the city. They're going to redo the design to design the tower with a ramp system instead of the funicular. The MOU that we had with Gumbo Limbo is expiring, so we'd like to get, instead of the 30 days or whatever, we want to do a 6-month extension. I just need to get direction from you all to go ahead and have council do a 6-month extension with the Friends so that we can work with the city to get the design done and then come back with it.
Is there a motion required for that?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Well, so the motion is to extend the existing MOU for another 6 months.
Correct.
And Mr. Rollins, you seconded.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry. Joanne, please make a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion
Good.
passed.
Brianne?
While we're on the subject of Gumbo Limbo, we knew that some issues were coming up at that building. We actually have a request from the city for the new, this is for the roof replacement at Gumbo Limbo. The project is going to cost $259,192. There's a contingency of $13,000, so the total request is $272,192. We did set aside $500,000 in capital expenses for Gumbo Limbo this year, so we would use that money from that line item to fund this. So we do have money set aside for it. I just wanted to get approval tonight so that they could start work on the roof at Gumbo Limbo.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to continue discussion, but I want to have a question too.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so Mr. Ernst makes the motion and Mr. Rollins seconds. Your discussion, Mr. Ernst.
Brianne, regarding the roof replacement, a couple things. One is, do the Friends of Gumbo Limbo support the roof replacement part of the project?
I don't know if the Friends weighed in on the roof replacement. I know the building is maintained by facilities maintenance. They're the ones who have done the reporting, and they had an external evaluation done, and they're the ones who came back and said it needs to be replaced. That's who maintains the facility out there.
Okay. I mean, the only reason I question it is that, you know, we've had discussions in the past about a major redesign out there, and I certainly would not want to spend $200,000-300,000 and discover later that we're tearing it all down. So I don't know where we're going with any other capital projects related to Gumbo Limbo.
Well, I
So-
think the redesign is a ways off. And if they're saying we need a re-roof, I don't think we can hold off for 5 to 7 years on a roof.
We need to, the roof is bad, and repairs aren't going to keep it together.
It has been bad for quite a while, and now it's just gotten worse. Is that a fair evaluation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We set aside money knowing that there's probably going to be AC costs coming at us too. AC and roofing costs, because we didn't intend on funding the master plan in the near future.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to say I had the same question that Craig did, but knowing how progress is generally slow on major projects like this, it's probably 7 to 10 years before any decisions are made about what's going to happen with Gumbo Limbo. Although I wish it were much sooner than that, but I don't think we have the luxury of postponing this decision, unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Craig?
Nope. If you'd like, I mean, it's the motion as stands is to replace the Gumbo Limbo roof as described by Brianne based on city estimates.
If there's no further discussion, Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Brianne, do you have some more?
I do. I have a golf course update. This comes from Mr. Branswick. He put this together. I know it came up in one of the early public comments from Mr. Chaffee as well, looking for an update, and I think Mr. Galanis was interested too. On our end, I did hear from Mike Wika last week about the NGF study, and there were questions, so I answered those questions. So I do know that even though the city's closed, I know they continue to work on projects, and I'm not sure when we'll hear back about it, but they have a lot going on, obviously. Wayne wrote this report. The intent of the district to proceed with the phased development of the golf course under a new budget necessitated a revised approach to the project. Over the last few weeks, during this period of uncertainty, he's been working with Clearspan, Landscapes Unlimited, and Charles Putnam to discuss issues with the phased approach. These are some of the ideas, and I'll send out the timeline and the phased approach, but basically they've been lowering the original budget for the maintenance facility was put from 2.6 to 1.9. They're working with Clearspan and Landscapes Unlimited for value engineering of that. And he also reviewed the maintenance building on site today to see if there's a way to reuse that area for now, just to get the facility opened on a smaller scale. The main change to the golf course was the amendment to the short course from 11 to 9 holes. I know that was done partly because of public input. It's required them to redraw the short course and has required some small changes, but nothing significant. They've been able to save a few more trees within that area as well. And then they continue, they're working with the city on the permitting and what will be required through that process. So they've had some meetings on that. They did put together a schedule, which I'll send out to everybody as far as that revised timeline goes for them.
Thank you,
And I'll
Brianne.
send out his full report, but those are the highlights.
Commissioners, we had sent a letter to the city that I guess expired on March 20, the timeline expired on March 26th.
Correct.
Regarding the approval for the design. Would you prefer to direct Brianne to construct another letter in view of the fact that these are different times than when we sent the letter, and ask for a response?
Madam Chair, may I speak towards that? Two things. One is, it sounds to me like Wayne has continued construction work with 3 other vendors, Clearspan and Landscapes Unlimited and Charles Putnam, and the expiry of the letter. Given the circumstances of what's happened in the past 4 to 5 weeks, it is evolved significantly, and I think it's probably not reasonable to assume that we are going to proceed with a building of the golf course in this current environment. There are many things, moving parts, and I think it just should settle a little bit in time. And it very well could be the city's existing municipal golf course remains with the city. We don't know. So without further dialogue and input with the city, I just don't see us coming to a conclusion quickly or a direction with it quickly. And I certainly wouldn't want to be forcing the city to make a decision or us going to do it on our own. So the 2 thoughts that I would recommend is, 1, have Wayne hold off on any other expenses, period, with the golf course, because we just don't know. And then let's wait and let's give this a, I don't know if it's at least a month. If we're not going to be able to pick this thing up until we have clearer direction of the impact of COVID-19 on our economy and our community. So it's really kind of let's stop things in motion. I do believe in the role of public government to be a kickstarter of things, and we are going to have to look at our own budget in many ways. So all of it kind of goes together.
So Craig, do you want to withdraw the request to the city?
Well, I think the original request to the city was kind of a threat, as I recall, that said, if you don't respond, we are going to proceed with demanding enforcement of our contract, as I recall. So
Well, I mean, do you want to just send them a letter saying we're withdrawing our request based on everything that's developed, and we will revisit it when everything's down
Aaron,
type thing?
That's an option, Aaron. I think that's a valid option, because the way we left it with them is kind of a demand, but I think we need to get together at the right time with the right priorities. So
Right.
your recommendation is to notify the city that we understand we're in very different circumstances and times, and we would like to withdraw that letter and readdress it in the near future.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Gorin?
Just to clarify for the record, words do matter legally. Withdrawal has a specific legal meaning as opposed to abating or deferring the application. You have taken the steps under the interlocal agreement to formally apply for site plan approval or for approval for the purposes of the agreement. Withdrawing it would rearrange the deck chairs and start you back at ground zero. I would suggest perhaps that maybe the intention, if I can offer, is to simply abate the application or to defer it, but not to withdraw it.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Rollins.
Madam Chairman, let's revisit the content of that letter and refresh my memory of the actual scope of that letter before we abate anything, because we've come too far to, I know I'm not prepared to move forward with any serious development of the course at this point for the reasons pointed out by Craig, but I don't want to give up on the idea that we did decide that we would move forward with a development, and I think we were looking for their approval on the site plan.
That's what it was.
We have not received, approval on the site plan, and I think that's something that we should continue to pursue it, but not as with such a rigorous time frame as what we had proposed. Maybe the option is to give them more time to consider that, and because there's been communications back and forth, Brianne, between you and Mike Weka regarding that. Is that correct?
We spoke briefly just about the NGF report that I sent him in early March,
Okay.
just through email. He just had a question.
Yeah.
I could certainly just let them know that we're not at this point, we're not looking to get an answer right away, or there's no, I don't know, somehow write it nicely.
Yeah. Well, I do think that we still need to know what their thoughts are on the site plan, because that's been one of the things that's been holding us up throughout this entire process. Whether or not we move forward after we get the approval or not, we still don't know whether or not they will approve the site plan. And I think that's imperative that we know that if we have any intentions of developing it ourselves. And I don't know that we have any intentions of, on a short-term basis, moving forward. Our time frame has certainly been pushed forward, but with this pandemic that we happen to be in, and has already been mentioned, with who knows what the ad valorem revenue is going to look like as we get through this pandemic. But I do think we still need to pursue getting that site plan approval from the city, so we know exactly what our options are.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. So the first item that Mr. Ernst brought up was to have Wayne hold off on any future expenses. So why don't we get a motion to direct Wayne in that capacity?
I would certainly make that make that motion, Madam Chairman.
Do I have a second? Mr. Engel seconds. Any other discussion?
So the motion is that Wayne and Southern Hills should not proceed with incurring any additional expenses. The executive director of the district can approve expenses, though, if needed.
Was that your intent, Mr. Rollins?
No, ma'am, it was not. No, I really, if the motion was to, stop any work that we might have. If it becomes necessary, then the executive director could bring that back to us. But it's not my intention to give Wayne any green light on doing any further development at this point.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. I agree.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion. Any more discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
It passes. And commissioners, as far as directing Brianne to send another letter to the city, just saying that we are still interested in getting site plan approval, do you have an appetite for that?
Yes, I do, Madam Chairman. I really think that we need to pursue that avenue. That's what we've been asking now for months on end.
Okay, is that a motion?
I'll make the motion then, Madam Chairman, that we have our executive director address the matter in a letter to the city that we're looking to them for an approval of the site plan for the development of the golf course, and give them sufficient latitude that they could, given where we are with this pandemic. I don't know that I would put a very tight time frame on that response. And that's, or if I need to do that, since Craig, I'm following your pattern here. Walking through this.
I'll help you with it if you would like.
Yeah. Go ahead, Craig. Finish the motion.
So, as Bob just described, we're going to request the city, a letter will be drafted to the city requesting the city to continue to evaluate the site plan motion as we presented, as the district has presented earlier. However, given the circumstances of COVID-19, we understand other priorities may take precedent and would like to receive this information soon, but we're abating our deadline request. Is that appropriate?
That would be legally sufficient, Mr. Commissioner. Yes.
Thank you, Craig. Beautiful motion.
Yes. Now we need a second.
Second.
I think Mr. Engel seconded. Any other discussion, commissioners?
So
Joanne?
we're just,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Wright.
sorry. So we're not giving them a time frame. Basically, we're saying we're still wanting their approval on this, but that with everything happening, we don't really have a time frame, but please keep it in your thoughts, mate. Something like that. That's what you're saying. Because to keep it on their plates with everything else that's going on, I just don't feel like it's the right,
Think
I
of
don't
it,
know.
maybe, oh, someone's got a phone call. Oh, that's council. I think, Aaron, one way of looking at it
Yeah.
is to think of it as deferral. We're not putting, we had a hard time frame in there previously. And so
Right.
we're not putting an end date on this because it will come up again. And I do expect that we will have a joint meeting, but we don't know when. And it's just keeping that on the radar for them. It's not saying when though. And
Okay.
after more information evolves, we may decide that collectively, we do want to go forward faster or we want to go forward slower. We don't know.
Okay, so basically we're just like amending our original request to them, saying it's kind of on hold. Okay,
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
gotcha.
Yes, Mr. Gorin.
just for reference, I happened to look at the file before coming to the meeting tonight.
The bottom of the closet.
The letter was dated February the 26th, and it gave the city 30 days through March the 26th. If the intention by the discussion on this motion is to not withdraw the application, to not withdraw the request, not to abandon the interest of having it reviewed, but simply to abate the time frame within which the city could respond, that will leave the application pending, that will leave the commitment on the part of the district continuing, and will leave open the date for a response, but would not keep the March 26th date alive. It would just simply keep the application pending. It would not withdraw it, would not abandon it, but would look to future coordination of a date that would make sense based upon the current COVID-19 issue, but would not in any way, shape, or form withdraw the application or abandon it in the context of setting it aside and abandoning it. That's not the case at all by this motion.
Yeah,
Thank
Does that help?
I think that's the spirit of the
Yes.
Sam.
Agreed. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Wright?
She's on mute.
Yes,
Commissioner Wright.
yes.
Thank you.
There we go.
Motion passes.
Motion passes, commissioners. Thank you very much. Brianne, do you have anything else?
I just wanted to thank the Recreation Services staff and the city leadership for all that they've been doing throughout this. I know they've worked really hard to keep the employees safe, to keep the residents safe. And I know from talking to Michael quite a bit in the last few days that they're really working hard to put plans together so that when we do reopen, he gave it in his update, but I know that staff has really worked a lot and they've worked very hard and they have a lot on their plates. And I just wanted to say thank you to them for all that they've been doing.
That was very nice. Thank you. District Council, who would like to speak for District Council?
I'll be happy to very briefly. I want to first thank the chair and the commission members and staff for organizing this Zoom meeting. I think you should be very proud of yourselves in the context of the size and length and breadth of this organization to be able to have this kind of virtual meeting on a successful platform that works not just for you as public officials and as elected officials, but also the public who had full and free access to the organization, both by email and by phone access. You are miles apart of other local governments that have been unable, by the way, to implement such a very uniquely good program. I commend you all for that, and thank you for at least listening to Jacob and myself on the best way we could to help you organize it from a legal perspective, but from the operational side, I commend Brianne and staff and the chair, and certainly all of you for getting us to this particular point. It's a uniquely important event for which I'm grateful on behalf of the law firm for all of you. So thank you for that. Just two other quick items. You've obviously addressed the issue that was a concern to Jacob and myself with regard to the outstanding letter to the city on the golf course. You've addressed that. There's nothing further to talk about in that regard. Just uniquely, if you will, the AG's opinion that we asked for, I looked at my notes and Jake and I looked at it today. It was dated January 31st. What I find unique about it is that Jake did actually speak with Tallahassee. They have one person that's actually functioning in the opinions division. But interestingly, when Governor DeSantis requested an AGO on the issue of having virtual public meetings, his answer came on March the 20th, which resulted that in the same day issuing an AG's opinion and also resulting in the governor's order allowing for virtual quorums. So we kind of got bumped out of line a bit, but to the extent that we have not yet received back an opinion about the leasing and renting issue, we have not heard back. I think we're number 6 or 10, Jake. What's the number, round numbers?
We're in the mix. Now, keeping in mind, we're aware of at least one other opinion that was requested in November, which has not been issued either. So we know there's a few in the queue ahead of us,
yes,
but we are on the list.
So don't think that we've forgotten about the request. The state may have sort of demurred to us in some respects, but that November request is for another public client of ours. So we're well aware of the fact that we're somewhere in the queue. We just don't know how big the queue is. The queue seems to be temporarily displaced. At any rate, we've not forgotten about that request. And to the extent that I can answer any questions or the Jay can with regard to the issues on the agenda, the declaration, for example, and such, we're happy to respond. As soon as, by the way, we get execution of that document, we can record the declaration of restrictions in the Palm Beach County Public Records as quickly as this week once we get signatures on the document. So thank you for allowing us to be party to this discussion. I'm home. Jake is home. We've saved a whole ton of gas, and I guess that's why oil is now below $0 a barrel. So thank you all very much, and we appreciate the opportunity. And please stay safe with your families. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin and Mr.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's now time for commissioners' reports. Mr. Engel, let's start with you.
I really don't have much to say at this point, aside from that I'm happy that we're all safe and healthy. And I really need an audience for my jokes. My wife's sick and tired of hearing them. And I want to thank Brianne and our staff for the extensive amount of work that they've done. My voice would have given out, Brianne, about maybe through number 25. So kudos on your vocal stamina. Other than that, I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Mrs. Wright? Erin?
Yeah, I'm here. No, just thank you to staff at the city, everybody at the city, our staff, everybody. That's it.
Good. Mr. Rollins?
No, well, it's good to see everyone tonight. I can't say I've missed having so many meetings or lengthy meetings, but I sure have missed the staff and missed the commissioners. The one good thing about the pandemic is that my wife has forced me to exercise more by taking walks, and I've seen more of my neighbors in the last 4 weeks than I have in the last 10 years. because everyone's doing the same thing as I am. Thanks to the staff for getting, us where we are today with the virtual meetings. The one question I did have is that if we're doing these virtual meetings, and Brianne, that was a virtuoso performance reading those emails. I wanted to interject something along the way to add some levity to it because it was such a serious topic that we were discussing. But since we're doing these, probably have another virtual meeting, the question I have is, will we be required to read into the record all of the emails that we get between the two meetings like we did today? Is that something that's required that we do that? Since we all see those on the servers, it's something that's necessary that we actually read those into the record.
Mr. Gorin, would you answer Mr. Rollins?
We can, and the answer is that under the rules that you've adopted, if the emails were a substitution for the physical presence of someone who would have otherwise come to the podium to address the commission, then they need to be read into the record. And to the extent that those folks can't physically be there, then their public iteration would be their ability to have their emails read no more than 5 minutes at a shot. Just one quick example though, if there are 50 emails that are sent to all of you, and only X number of those 50 are specifically requested as if they were for public comment, we can coordinate that with Brianne to make sure that not all 50 perhaps have to be read, but maybe some lesser amount if in fact they're just simply conversations with you already available. So we'd have to look at that carefully. The ones that were read into the record tonight, we believe based upon their delivery that they were requested for public comment.
Those were all sent to the email that we set up specifically for public comment. I actually had more emails in my come over the weekend than that came into the public comment email.
Well, in reality, if everyone had showed up to the meeting, I doubt that we'd have had that many come to the podium because the similarities between the emails was pointed out by one of the respondents that, it's like it's a boilerplate. And if I ever hear, what's the expression, I wrote that down, Boca is not an island. If I ever hear that again, it'll be too soon. But it just seems to me there should be some way we could streamline letters that say the same thing that look like they were just run off on a copy machine. That's all.
Understood.
Mr. Gorin, did you have something?
No, just to the extent that I respect and embrace Commissioner Rollins' comments and his concerns. Part of the challenge we have is trying to balance what is otherwise potentially a replication of a similar letter with the right of the public to have access. And this platform, unfortunately, opens up a door that challenges all of you from the standpoint of time. I also commend Brianne for her well-spoken presentations. We'll look at that carefully and make sure that if there's some way to sift through them and not read some, but defer others in the context of making them part of public record, but not reading them, we will coordinate between now and the next meeting for sure.
This was in no way criticism, but more or less a critique and perhaps a suggestion, a way that could be streamlined, since there are other business that, we need to attend to.
Understood.
Well,
you cannot be accused, Commissioner, through the chair, if I may, with being non-transparent. You're being extremely transparent by virtue of that, the gifted reading of our executive director.
And we've always been that way too, and we'll continue.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rollins, is that all?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ernst.
Madam Chair, first of all, I thank Brianne for reading that lengthy list as others. And I just want to, at the beginning of the meeting, I asked for a second on a motion. And I want to clarify some of given all those emails that came in, just a couple of questions, and I want to clarify some facts. So the first one is, how many emails did you receive there, approximately, Brianne?
In the public comment email, it was around 135 or 140 before it was all said and done.
So about
100. A few that did not pertain to the reopening.
But of the ones that were pertaining to the reopening, would you say that almost 100% of them were not to reopen?
I would say yes.
Okay. And so, and some of them were duplicates. I mean, they were copy paste of letters of things. So a number of we got kind of pounded with a lot of people saying things. Okay. So let's, and if you don't mind, I'd like to just clarify, there was a lot of facts thrown around there that were just, you know, inconsistent and wrong. So I'd like to share the screen that I have with you and just showing you the facts of what numbers are out there. And as you can see here, this is a report that I get daily from the Miami Emergency Operations Committee. And you can see that it is a serious event. COVID-19 is very serious. As of yesterday evening, there were 247 cases in the state of New York, which has 19.5 million people. And then you see here, Michigan has 31,000 cases. These are just identified cases. There may be more. And then we come down here to Florida, and we see that Florida has 21 million residents and 26,000 cases. We also see here that, you know, Palm Beach has 2,107 cases. We have 1.5 million people indoors. Okay, that's as of yesterday. You know, and the statistics, yes, these are the cases, the cumulative loss. So you'll see a chart going up there. So I'd like to stop sharing that screen. And I just want to share one other screen that was provided to me. Let's see, where is it? Well, unfortunately, I don't see it, but it gives me the total number of people who have passed. And that, unfortunately, for the people who have passed in Palm Beach County, there are 127. And one person passing is not good enough. But all of these cases are, for the most part, people who are well over in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. All tragic, but the case number of these is related to COVID-19. Relative to other, you know, influenza and other things, this is not as significant. But I don't want to argue about that at all. What I'm talking about is some of the things that we are listed for. Boca was the first to close their beach and parks. Okay, so we do take action. But what the resolution that is being proposed was not to open the beach and parks, because we don't have the authority to open the beach and parks. Along the way, Palm Beach County issued an order closing all public and private parks on March 25th. It doesn't matter whether it's a public or private, it's all closed. And so they're the only ones who can lift that order. And further, you know, there's a bit of an outcry from our golfing community with good reason. You may have received 140 emails, mostly copy paste, but I understand someone we all know very well, Rick Hurd, has been working with others on a signature list asking for the county to open up golf courses. And in Palm Beach County, we are an owner of a golf course. It may be defunct, but there are over 160 golf courses, all closed, public and private, roughly 40 of them. And Rick has over 5,000 signatures asking for the county to open the golf course. It couldn't be anything more passive than golf, where you could have social distancing. And it just makes no sense to not take action to it. Our board can do one of two things. We can say nothing and just leave it be as it is, or we can take action. And the recommendation that I'm asking for is to go with the resolution that that has been drafted and presented to everyone. And it's a very simple resolution, actually. It's not saying to open the beach and parks at all. What it's saying is for us to urge the Palm Beach County authorities to take action. And that action is that they will open the golf courses and public areas, parks, with current CDC guidelines and community mitigation strategies that curtail the spread of COVID-19. And by the way, this is an important part of our community. And I feel just as passionate about it as when I got elected, that we should be encouraging our community to use our parks. And it can be managed in a lot of different ways, and we can plan on these things. But if we do nothing and we don't allow for any planning and don't do anything, we're going to be subject to something we don't know is. And so there is a need to do something. And on top of all of that, you know, what I heard on Friday from our Palm Beach County mayor and the commission staff was basically they have no plans to do anything unless Broward or Miami does something. Okay, which is very different than us. There's two other counties than Palm Beach County. And so the message is to take a look at, you know, opening with CDC guidelines, allow the city to develop its plans, allow us to have a controlled phased in of doing it, not to just randomly open it and it's going to be like the Jacksonville experience that we saw up there. That is the kind of pent up demand that you're going to have the longer you wait on these things. And by the way, as we speak, I just got notice that Miami-Dade has just announced that they're going to reopen public parks, marinas, and golf courses. So, you know, the resolution that I didn't get to propose, and I'm going to just read the first sentence of it because I think every one of our committee has it, and if I can get a second, we will, you know, go for the second part of it. It's a resolution of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District urging Palm Beach County to reopen beaches, passive, public, and private parks, tennis courts, and public and private golf courses to the public while continuing to follow current CDC guidelines, implementing community mitigation strategies to curtail the spread of COVID-19 in public places during a declared public health emergency and providing repealer and providing an affirmative effective date. The message here is simply to ask our county to move out of the way, let us run our business on things. And I think it's important for us as a community, particularly the Beach and Park District, to be the first ones to say, you know, we need to have a plan, and we will have a plan. And we rely as our partner, the city, to lead that way. And I am confident that city staff will do an outstanding job in opening any beach or park, but we have to have control over it. So it's very limited, it's done in a phased approach, and it doesn't create a mass crowd. And all of those emails that we received, I think it is a mistake. There's a lot of misinformation there that was provided, and it would be a shame for us to say those are the only people who are telling us to act on that information or not act on that information. So with that, I ask for a motion for a second.
Oh,
I think one thing though that you said that was incorrect. Miami-Dade County, we got this from Sam in regards to a 4-county reopening of recreational amenities. So they're not opening anything on their own. It came from Broward County. Am I right on this, Sam?
Mayor,
I don't know.
What we received mid-afternoon before today's meeting was a memorandum from the county administrator for Broward County, which set forth a 4-county proposal, principally with regard to parks, golf courses, and marinas. Attached with that proposal was a Miami-Dade suggestion regarding how they would operate their golf courses. I don't believe that there's been any decision yet reached by the county mayor. Those were proposals, but for the first time probably in the history of the 4-county area, there's actually been some creative conversation among the administrators, and I assume the mayors, to find some kind of common ground. So as we speak this evening, I can't know whether there's been any action taken by any one mayor, but I do know that the issues of golf course usage and parks access and marinas use and dock usages were addressed. Beaches, by the way, were not part of the conversation. So we won't know till tomorrow or whenever, but it seems to me that for the first time in some creative history that there's been an actual a conversation among the 4 counties about having some unity and a unified decision where appropriate.
And with all due respect, I did not see Sam's article. I'm looking at a news article that was published at 5:40 this evening today.
Yeah.
So
I think if I may, to the commission, Brianne sent out we got the packet ourselves mid-afternoon. It was the email memo from Bertha Henry and the 4 or 5 page document about golf course usage, etc. I believe there was a Miami-Dade County proposal, but there have been no consensus as to approach, but it was simply out there for the first time together.
And if I could just add very briefly, Madam Chair, according to the Miami-Dade County's website, the last emergency order was entered on the 15th. There's been nothing, no action taken since then.
Thank you, Mr. Horowitz.
Thank you, Jay.
So Mr. Ernst has a motion and there is no second yet. Do I hear a second?
No, and I think we need to, I mean, is this, Craig, was this supposed to meant to be like a coordinated effort with the county, or you just want the city to do its own thing?
I would, the recommendation, all this motion does is it urges Palm Beach County to set forth a plan, and for the city to set forth a plan, and for us not to be constrained by this, whatever the county comes up with.
Well, I've been watching the county meetings, and they've been saying that they are coming up with a plan to open based on scientific facts and medical guidance from at the federal level and the county level. I don't think the city has any medical guidance or anybody on staff that has an MPH or is an epidemiologist or a virologist. So
respectfully, Aaron, I don't agree with letting the county, the county arbitrarily dictate what they would like and when they'd like to do it. When they've closed the golf courses all this time, and what they've deemed as essential versus non-essential to this point in day is not relevant for a golf course. I mean, golf courses should be open. There's no reason that they have already came forth with the PGA has announced plenty of ways to work around COVID-19. And
yeah, but that's not till July.
Well, that's right. And you're signing up for something that could be out in July or August. And that's the problem right there. Without doing any action, nothing happens. It's far easier for the county to do nothing. And that's why I'm
But that's not what they've been saying. They're not saying that they're going to do nothing. They're getting as much information as possible to make the best decision for the health of their residents. And I don't think opening the golf courses during this whole thing would have been the right thing to do. I think it was smart to close everything. And I think Scott made the right decision on that.
If I may, nobody has brought up something that concerns me greatly, is that staff is
and the staff
and the workers who are going to be maintaining these facilities. You see on the sides of the roads, in the parking lots, everybody disposing of their gloves or their masks without throwing it in the trash. This is going to impact staff who are going to have to pick up these things. And don't tell me that it's not going to happen, because it will. And I just feel that we need to be more sympathetic to the staff, particularly like if we open our parks, park rangers are, for the most part, probably over 65. You're going to be putting them in harm's way. They may have underlying health conditions. I'm not in favor of doing this until we have some specific guidelines, like came out in this email about how to do the golf courses. But are people actually going to go by these guidelines? Will they do this in order
So the alternative is that because someone doesn't want to do their job, this is a job they chose. And I'm sorry, for park rangers, this is a critical function of the job.
May I say something?
A park ranger doesn't have to put their lives at risk.
Yeah,
neither does a Publix worker have to put their life at risk.
What they signed up for, Craig. They signed up for a part-time job at a low rate of pay to basically keep an eye on things. Now, if you open up a golf course, you think golfers are the only ones that are going to be out there? And if you open up a golf course, doesn't somebody have to clean up after them? If you open up a park, there are benches, there are facilities that have to be cleaned.
But listen, the whole purpose, stop here for a second. The purpose of this amendment is not.
Mr. Engel,
okay. Now I'm looking at numbers too. And what I see in my zip code is that the number of COVID-19 cases has more than doubled in a week. What I also see is we don't have nearly enough testing, so we don't have any idea of what's going on out there. What I also see is we have hardly any contact tracing. So that when we do find out about COVID cases, we don't have any way of following up. Where have these people been? Who have they spoken to? And for people like me who are in a high risk group, okay, if I want to go out to the supermarket, do I have to worry that somebody was at a golf course the day before and might have gotten infected and I run into this person? Okay, we have an obligation not only to golfers, not only to beach goers, we have an obligation to the entire community. And what I see a lot of numbers. I see, okay, it's not expanding as fast as originally thought. That's great, and that's a function of social distancing and sheltering in place and not going out unless you absolutely have to. And yeah, it's economically very painful. It's costing me thousands of dollars a month. And I wish to hell, I know my wife especially wishes to hell, I could get out of the house for a couple hours and go see a client, you know, go do something else, go to a movie, go out to eat. But right now, this is where I think we need to be. And until we have the scientific data, until we see a decline in the number of new cases for a sustained period, and I'm talking about for a week or two, we really need to sit tight. Okay, we're almost there.
Do I have a second on this motion? Okay. You're back, Mrs. Wright. Do we have a second on this motion?
No.
Okay. All right. So the motion is now tabled. Do you have any other business, Mr. Ernst?
I would point out to respectfully this group, if you've driven along A1A and you've driven along the beachfront, you will see a number of people already there. So it's better to participate with a plan and define what you're going to do for reopening rather than just choose to ignore it. So be prepared for, you know, the repercussions of it. There were people walking off of Ocean Strand as I drove nearby there. There were people who were at in front of Spanish River Park. Okay, there's people crisscrossing across the beach. Something happening whether you like it or not. I suppose we should go arrest them. Is that what we should do? That's really unfortunate. I thought we were for open beach parks, and I think we can do that in a safe, economical way for everyone without shutting everything down. And I do not believe the messaging that was given to us by all those emails was a canned email response from many, many people who didn't look at a lot of the facts. So it's very unfortunate.
And I think you're right, Craig, but I don't think it's the right time to do it yet. I just don't, I mean, when I was looking at the state and regional gating criteria from the federal government, do you know if we meet that yet? The gating criteria is what you have to meet before you can even think about the phase 1 opening that was set by President Trump. Do you know if we meet that criteria yet?
Listen, Aaron, on the Easter message from the mayor of Miami, he very carefully articulated that the first thing that will happen is a focus on opening parks and open spaces. So it may be fake news, but it does not surprise me that that will open. So my message here is...
Wait, I'm confused by what you just said.
Miami-Dade the mayor
Right.
of Miami-Dade has already indicated that the first thing that will open is beach and parks.
Right, but they don't have a time frame yet.
And
They don't even
part
have
of-
a date set, is what I'm saying.
And what I'm saying is they need to set a date. They need to base it on benchmarks. I'm not saying not just open them. I'm saying you will need to have some timelines, some benchmarks. I'm all on board with that.
Yes, and I agree
But let's
with
get our
you,
plan
but
together.
it's not the time yet. And I think that the county,
Have a second on this?
Yeah.
So
no.
it is now tabled. Is there?
Madam Chairman, I just have one comment. You know, I've wrestled with this subject, and there's so much disinformation out there. You know, from the very beginning, I think we overestimated the amount of deaths that we might have in this country, even. And I think we just really didn't have any idea where we were going to go with this pandemic and how bad it was going to be. It hasn't been as bad as even deaths from your annual flu that we get. So, but people are frightened about the how contagious this particular virus happens to be. If I had done the issued the closure of I probably would have been more reluctant to close the golf courses, but, with the exception of the fact that you have to be concerned about the people who are actually keeping the golf courses open and their contact with people. So I'm sympathetic to, I do not want to just stick our head in the sand and not come up with a plan. I'm hoping that our city is doing just that. I'm hoping our county is doing just that. But I know what the president set down for the guidelines for the governors of states, and that's to where you have a stabilization in the number of individuals and a decrease in the number of individuals that are being hospitalized over a 14-day period, and we haven't gotten there yet. And I think that's where I am. Is that I'm coming down on this. Is I think we're very close to it, where we can open these parks successfully. I don't know that I agree with some of the comments that it's difficult to enforce a lot of these things, and the police have their hands full doing other things rather than writing tickets for people trespassing on the beach or people who are not keeping their social distance. I'm hoping for a very soon end to this, but I'm thinking that we're probably a couple of weeks away is the reason why I've been reluctant to support any motion at this point. But I appreciate Craig's passion for this. I'd like to see that. I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to support it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rollins. I just have a couple of things. I want to thank Brianne, Joanne, and Melissa. They've worked every day. And Brianne had all this foresight to get everybody, laptops so that they could work at home. And they've been doing that. They've been catching up on things. And I can't thank all of them enough. I also want to compliment Mayor Singer. He had such forward thinking about closing the beaches and the parks and implementing the usage of the masks. And I think that that's going to save lives. And that's why our numbers aren't going to be as large. Aaron, I want to compliment your husband and his co-workers and the other first responders and all the healthcare workers. I have a very dear friend who's she's working a lot, and she's right at the front lines. So do we have any future agenda items, Brianne, other than the FAU agreement? You're not on.
Also the easement at Sugar Sand.
Okay. And that will be, May 4th is our next meeting. So in all likelihood, it will be a virtual meeting. And then we can go from there as far as the governor's situation and what he's going to suggest for us for after May 9th. So
for the record, I will come back on May 4th.
We want you here, Craig. Okay. Mr. Engel?
Move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Joanne, I have to have a roll call vote one more time.
My pleasure. Okay, Commissioner Ernst.
Well, I'm not sure now. Yes, I move to adjourn.
Commissioner Engel.
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Have a good night.
Night.
Thank you.